a galaxy of tyranny and a time of conspiracy, the destiny of a great republic rests on the shoulders of two young wizards. Their names, Merlin and Harry Potter. The Force had existed for millennia, binding the galaxy together in an invisible web of energy that Jedi and Sith alike claimed to understand. But on this day, something else entered the Star Wars universe, something older, more primal, and utterly incompatible with every rule the Force followed. Magic, true magic from another reality entirely, tore through dimensional barriers and announced its arrival with consequences neither galaxy was prepared for. Merlin materialized in the Jedi Temple Gardens with a thunderclap that shattered every window within 50 meters. He landed in a crouch, his eyes blazing gold, as residual magic crackled around his body like lightning. The young warlock, looking no older than 25 despite centuries of existence, immediately sensed wrongness in this place. The air tasted of corruption masked by righteousness, and his prophetic senses screamed warnings about shadows gathering in towers of light. 3 Jedi Knights surrounded him within seconds. Lightsabers ignited, their expressions mixing caution with confusion. "Identify yourself," the lead Jedi demanded. "How did you breach the temple's defenses?" Merlin raised his hands slowly, not in surrender but in demonstration. His eyes flashed gold, and the 3 lightsabers flew from their wielders' grips, hovering in midair between them. "I mean no harm," Merlin said, his voice carrying a British accent that sounded impossibly out of place. "But I don't respond well to threats. My name is Merlin. I'm a warlock from a place called Earth, and something has pulled me across realities into your galaxy." "That's impossible," one of the Jedi said, reaching out through the Force to retrieve his weapon. The lightsaber didn't budge. "The Force should... How are you doing that without the Force?" "Because it's not the Force," Merlin replied, letting the lightsabers drift gently back to their owners. "It's magic, and before you tell me magic doesn't exist, I've heard that before from people who ended up very surprised." Across the galaxy, on a separatist-controlled mining world called Raxus Prime, Harry Potter's arrival was considerably less graceful. The dimensional rift spat him out 3,000 meters above the planet's surface, and even the Elder Wand's magic couldn't prevent the bone-jarring impact when he hit the ground. "Arresto momentum!" Harry gasped, the spell slowing his descent just enough to avoid death. He crashed through the roof of an abandoned factory, rolled across debris-strewn floor, and came up with his wand raised, the invisibility cloak already materializing from his pocket. Battle droids surrounded the building within minutes, their vocabulators echoing in mechanical unison. "Unidentified organic detected. Comply with Separatist authority or be terminated." Harry pulled the cloak around himself and vanished from sight. Not Force-based concealment that Jedi could sense, but true invisibility woven into fabric by death itself. The droid's sensors registered nothing. "Target lost. Expanding search grid." Harry waited until they spread out, then whispered, "Stupefy." The red spell caught the nearest droid, and instead of stunning an organic being, it fried every circuit in the mechanical soldier's body. The droid collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. "Well, that's new," Harry muttered. His magic worked on droids. That was unexpected but tactically useful. "Reducto!" Another droid exploded into components. "Depulso!" 3 more flew backward into walls hard enough to shatter their chassis. He was halfway through the droid patrol when a familiar whine made him look up. A Republic gunship descended through Raxus Prime's toxic atmosphere, and Harry's war-honed instincts recognized a rescue mission when he saw one. Except he wasn't who they were rescuing. The gunship's doors opened and clone troopers rappelled down, immediately engaging the remaining droids with blaster fire. Behind them came a young man with dark hair, a Padawan braid, and a blue lightsaber that carved through battle droids with practiced ease. Anakin Skywalker had come to rescue Republic soldiers captured during the last offensive. What he found instead was a scene that made no sense. Destroyed droids scattered everywhere, their circuits fried by energy weapons that left no blaster marks, and the complete absence of any living being. "Commander, what am I looking at?" Anakin asked through his comm. "Unknown, General. The droids were definitely destroyed, but we're not reading any life signs except yours and the squad." Anakin reached out through the Force and felt nothing. Not absence, but a void, like someone had cut a person-shaped hole in reality. "There's someone here. I can't sense them through the Force, but they're here." Harry made a decision. He'd fought in a war, had allies he'd trusted with his life, and recognized soldiers trying to do the right thing when he saw them. He'd dropped the invisibility cloak. "Don't shoot!" Harry called out, stepping from behind cover with his wand raised but not pointed. "I'm not your enemy." Every clone trooper and Anakin's lightsaber immediately focused on him. Harry noticed the young Jedi's weapon didn't waver despite obvious confusion. "Who are you?" Anakin demanded. "How did you destroy these droids? And why can't I sense you in the Force?" "My name is Harry Potter. I'm a wizard from Earth. Apparently a different Earth than you're familiar with, given the whole." He gestured vaguely at the clone troopers and alien architecture. "Space civilization thing. I destroyed the droids with magic, and I have no idea what the Force is, so I can't help you with why you can't sense me." One clone trooper lowered his blaster slightly. "Sir, he's either telling the truth or completely insane." "Could be both," Anakin admitted, but he deactivated his lightsaber. "Magic? Like pulling banthas out of hats and reading minds." "More like this," Harry said, pointing his wand at a piece of debris. "Wingardium Leviosa." The metal panel floated into the air, spun in a lazy circle, and settled gently back down. "Or this, Lumos." The wand tip blazed with light brighter than any glow rod. "Or, if someone really annoys me, Expelliarmus." A burst of scarlet energy shot past Anakin's head and ripped a battle droid rifle from the rubble, sending it flying 50 meters. Anakin caught the rifle telekinetically before it could hit his men, his Jedi reflexes saving them from friendly fire. "Okay, that's not the Force. That's something else entirely." He studied Harry with open curiosity. "You said you're from Earth? We have records of a planet called Earth in the unknown regions, but it's pre-industrial. They definitely don't have whatever you're doing." "Different Earth," Harry confirmed. "Different dimension, apparently. One second I'm testing the limits of the Deathly Hallows. The next I'm crash-landing on your droid-infested industrial nightmare." He paused. "Wait, you said you came to rescue Republic soldiers. Where are they?" "The intelligence was wrong. There's no prison camp here." Anakin's frustration was evident. It was probably a trap to draw out Jedi, and we walked right into it. "Or," Harry said slowly, his Auror instincts kicking in, "someone wanted you here for a different reason. I've dealt with enough conspiracies to recognize when things are too convenient. You arrive exactly when I do, after I've conveniently demonstrated I'm not a threat? That's either the world's best coincidence or someone's manipulating events." Anakin's expression shifted from curious to calculating. "You think like Obi-Wan, suspicious of everything." "I think like someone who spent 7 years fighting a war against a dark wizard who infiltrated every level of government," Harry corrected. "Trust me, when you've seen corruption from the inside, you start recognizing the patterns." Back on Coruscant, Merlin stood before the Jedi High Council, his hands bound in force suppression restraints that did absolutely nothing to his magic. Yoda, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and several other masters studied him with expressions ranging from fascination to suspicion. "Explain again how you breached our defenses, you must," Yoda said, his ancient eyes missing nothing. "I didn't breach anything," Merlin replied patiently. "I was pulled here against my will by forces beyond my control. Dimensional barriers are tricky, and when they break, you don't get to choose your landing spot." Mace Windu leaned forward. "And this magic you claim to possess, it's not the Force?" "No, it's fundamentally different. The Force connects living things, right? Binds the galaxy together. Magic is personal power. It comes from within, from will and intent and the right words or gestures. I don't need to connect to anything external. The power is mine." "Demonstrate," Mace commanded. Merlin's eyes flashed gold, and every object in the council chamber, chairs, datapads, even Mace's lightsaber, rose into the air simultaneously. They spun in perfect synchronization, creating a complex pattern that would have been impossible for even the strongest Jedi to maintain. "I can do this all day without getting tired," Merlin said conversationally as dozens of objects danced around the room. "I can also read minds without training, see the future, speak to creatures you'd call animals, heal wounds instantly, and turn invisible. And that's just the basics." He let everything settle back gently into place. "But here's what you really need to know. I can sense lies. It's a gift I've refined over centuries of dealing with people who wanted to manipulate me. And this entire temple, your whole republic, it reeks of deception. Someone very powerful is lying to you and you don't even know it." The council chamber fell silent. Obi-Wan spoke first, his voice measured. "You can sense lies consistently? Every word, every intention." Merlin's gaze swept across the assembled masters. "None of you are lying right now, which is reassuring. But someone connected to you, someone you trust, is buried so deep in deception that it's poisoning everything around them. I've felt this kind of corruption before. On my world, we called it dark magic. Here, I'm guessing you'd call it the dark side." Yoda's ears twitched. "A Sith Lord you believe exists close to us?" "I don't know what a Sith is," Merlin admitted. "But yes, someone wielding darkness is very close to this order. Closer than you think. And if my visions are right, and they always are, that person is about to commit genocide." "Genocide?" Mace's hand moved to his lightsaber. "Explain, now." "I saw clones turning on Jedi," Merlin said, his voice dropping to deadly seriousness. "Soldiers you trust, men you fight beside, suddenly executing their commanders without hesitation. I saw temples burning, younglings murdered, an entire order exterminated in a single coordinated strike. And I saw the man who gives the order." "Who?" Obi-Wan demanded. Merlin closed his eyes, recalling the vision with perfect clarity. "An old man with a kind face and a politician's smile, someone you trust completely, someone who's been right in front of you all along, and you never saw what he really is." "Supreme Chancellor Palpatine," Mace said, though his voice carried disbelief. "You're describing Chancellor Palpatine. Is he old, kind-looking, and politically powerful?" "Yes, but then that's your Sith Lord," Merlin said flatly. "And unless we stop him, everyone in this room is going to die." The council erupted in protests and arguments, but Merlin just stood there, his gold eyes watching, his magic sensing their fear and denial, warring with the terrible suspicion that he might be right. Across the galaxy, Harry Potter looked at Anakin Skywalker and said something that would change everything. "Take me to your leadership. If this galaxy has governments, it has corruption, and I've gotten very good at exposing corrupt governments. Let's see what we can find." Two wizards from Earth, separated by space but united in purpose, had arrived in the Clone Wars, and Palpatine's carefully constructed conspiracy was about to face something it was never designed to handle. Magic that could see through lies, visions that revealed hidden truths, and two men who'd spent their lives fighting injustice and weren't about to stop now. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The Jedi Council chamber crackled with tension as Merlin's accusation hung in the air like a death sentence. Mace Windu stood abruptly, his face a mask of controlled fury. "You dare accuse the Supreme Chancellor of being a Sith Lord? Based on what? Visions? Dreams? We've known Palpatine for decades. He's been nothing but supportive of the Jedi Order." "Which is exactly what I'd do if I were trying to manipulate you," Merlin replied, his tone maddeningly calm. "Gain your trust, make myself indispensable, position myself so close that you'd never suspect me." His eyes flashed gold. "I've dealt with my share of dark sorcerers. They don't announce themselves, they smile, they help, they become your friend, right until they stab you in the back." Obi-Wan stroked his beard thoughtfully. "Master Yoda, the dark side does cloud our vision. We've said as much ourselves. If there were a Sith Lord hiding in plain sight, then sensed him we should have." Mace interrupted. "The Council includes the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy. You're telling me we've been blind to a Sith Lord living and working among us for years?" "Yes," Merlin said simply. "That's exactly what I'm telling you, because he's that good, and you've been that trusting." He stepped forward despite the Force restraints. "Let me prove it. Take me to see this Chancellor. Let me stand in the same room with him. I'll know within seconds if he's your Sith Lord." "Absolutely not," Mace said. "If you're wrong, we've insulted the head of our government based on the word of a dimensional refugee we met 2 hours ago. If you're right and he senses what you're doing, you'll be dead before you can warn us." "Then test me first," Merlin challenged. "Bring me someone you know is lying, anyone. I'll prove my ability to detect deception, and then you'll have to take my warning seriously." Yoda's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "A test we could arrange, but careful we must be. If right you are, Merlin, then dangerous game we play. If wrong you are, then chaos you create." "I'm not wrong," Merlin insisted. "My visions have never lied. I've seen your future, and it ends in blood unless we act now." Meanwhile, Anakin's Republic cruiser jumped out of hyperspace near Coruscant with an unexpected passenger. Harry Potter stood on the bridge, his wand tucked in his jacket but his hand never far from it, watching the city planet grow larger through the viewport. "That's an entire planet of buildings," Harry said, genuine awe in his voice. "London's got nothing on this." "Coruscant's been the galactic capital for thousands of years," Anakin explained, watching Harry carefully. "It's home to the Senate, the Jedi Temple, and about 1 trillion beings. It's also where we'll find out if you're telling the truth or if this is some elaborate separatist trick." "Do your separatists typically use magic?" Harry asked dryly. "No, but they've used disguises, infiltrators, and shapeshifters before. Can't be too careful." Anakin glanced at Commander Rex, who'd kept his blaster trained on Harry throughout the journey despite orders to stand down. "Rex thinks you're dangerous." "I am dangerous," Harry agreed. "Fought in a war, killed dark wizards, watched friends die. But I'm not your enemy unless you make me one. I don't fight for governments anymore. I fight for people who can't defend themselves." "Sounds like Jedi philosophy," Anakin said. "Does it? Then why are Jedi fighting as generals in a war?" Harry's question was pointed. "Where I'm from, peacekeepers who become soldiers usually lose sight of what they were protecting in the first place." Anakin's jaw tightened. We didn't have a choice. The Separatists attacked. Millions would die if we didn't defend them. And who started the war? Who benefits from it continuing? Who's making money or gaining power while soldiers die? Harry had learned these questions from Hermione's political activism and his own experiences fighting a corrupt ministry. I'm not criticizing you personally, but I've seen this before. Wars don't just happen. Someone creates them. The ship docked at a military landing platform, and Anakin led Harry through security checkpoints that registered his wand as unknown material and his invisibility cloak as sensor-resistant fabric. The clones examining his possessions looked increasingly nervous. General Skywalker, we can't identify any of this subject's equipment. It's not matching any known technology in our databases. That's because it's magic, not technology, Harry explained. The wands made from holly and phoenix feather, the cloaks woven from thestral hair, and spells older than your civilization. And this, he pulled out a small stone, is the Resurrection Stone, one of the Deathly Hallows. It can summon echoes of the dead. Every clone in the security station took a step back. Anakin raised an eyebrow. You can talk to dead people? After a fashion. They're not really the dead, more like impressions, memories given form. But yes, I can call them up for advice or comfort. Harry pocketed the stone. Useful when you need perspective from people who've seen empires rise and fall. Keep that thing away from the Jedi temple, Anakin muttered. We have enough problems without adding ghost summoning to the list. They traveled by speeder to the temple, and Harry's first sight of the massive ziggurat structure made him think of Hogwarts, ancient, powerful, and carrying weight beyond its physical presence. But unlike Hogwarts' welcoming warmth, the temple felt cold despite its grandeur. Something's wrong here, Harry said quietly as they approached. I can feel it, like when Voldemort's Horcruxes were hidden in Hogwarts. There's corruption somewhere close. You're not the first to say that today, Anakin replied grimly. There's someone else here, another dimensional refugee who claims to detect lies and has visions. The Council's testing him now. Harry stopped walking. Another refugee? What's his name? Merlin. Calls himself a warlock, whatever that means. Merlin? Harry's eyes widened. Thin, young-looking, speaks with a British accent, eyes that glow gold when he does magic. You know him. Know of him. Merlin's a legend where I'm from, the greatest wizard who ever lived, advisor to King Arthur, created the Knights of the Round Table. If that's really him. Harry started walking faster. We need to get to the temple now. If Merlin's here and sensing corruption, things are about to get very complicated very fast. In the council chamber, Merlin's test had begun. They'd brought him a captured separatist spy who'd been caught sabotaging Republic equipment. The spy sat bound before the council, her expression defiant. She claims she acted alone, Mace explained. We believe she's protecting accomplices. Use your lie detection. Merlin crouched before the woman, his gold eyes studying her face. What's your name? Natara Keelan. Truth, Merlin said immediately. Are you a separatist agent? Yes. Truth. Did you act alone in sabotaging Republic equipment? Yes. But this time Merlin smiled coldly. Lie. You had help from at least 3 others. 2 humans and a Twi'lek, if the images in your mind are accurate. One of them is still on Coruscant, hiding in the industrial sector. He stood and faced the council. Should I continue? I can tell you where she was born, who recruited her, and what the separatists promised her family if she succeeded. Obi-Wan looked at the spy, whose face had gone pale. Is he right? Do you have accomplices? Natara's defiance crumbled. How does he know that? No interrogation, no force probing. He just looked at me and knew everything. Because lies are transparent to me, Merlin explained. I see truth like you see light. And right now, I'm telling you that someone in a position of ultimate power is lying to everyone in this galaxy. Let me meet your Chancellor. One conversation. If I'm wrong, I'll submit to whatever punishment you deem appropriate. But if I'm right, you need to know before it's too late. Yoda closed his eyes deep in meditation. When he opened them, his decision was clear. Arrange a meeting we shall, but careful we must be. If Sith Lord he is, then dangerous this becomes. Very dangerous, Mace agreed. But if there's even a chance Merlin is right. The chamber doors burst open. Anakin strode in with Harry Potter, whose appearance made Merlin's head snap around in shock. Harry Potter? Merlin stood slowly. The boy who lived, master of death. What in the name of the triple goddess are you doing in the Star Wars universe? I could ask you the same thing, Merlin, Harry replied, equal parts amazed and relieved. Last I heard, you were a legend from 1,500 years ago, possibly fictional, definitely not standing in an alien temple during a galactic war. Time travel, immortality, and dimensional rifts make for a complicated existence, Merlin said, dryly. But if we're both here, that's not coincidence. Something wanted us in this galaxy. Or someone, Harry suggested, his auror instincts prickling. Merlin, what have you found so far? Corruption, conspiracy, and a Sith Lord masquerading as the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic, Merlin said bluntly. You? Clone army with suspicious programming, a war that feels manufactured, and political structures that scream manipulation. Harry pulled out his wand. Want to team up and expose some injustice? Absolutely, Merlin grinned, his eyes flashing gold. Just like old times, except this time, we're not fighting Morgana or Voldemort. We're fighting an empire built on lies. The Jedi Council watched the exchange with growing alarm and fascination. Two wizards from Earth, speaking like old friends despite centuries separating their origins, casually discussing toppling their government's highest official. Mace Windu found his voice first. You two know each other. Not personally, Harry admitted, but every wizard knows about Merlin. He's the foundation of magical history. He looked at the legendary warlock with newfound respect. And if he says your Chancellor is a Sith Lord, I believe him. I've gotten good at spotting dark wizards, and something about this whole situation stinks of Voldemort-level manipulation. This Voldemort, Obi-Wan asked carefully, was he a threat in your world? Started a genocidal war, infiltrated the government, corrupted good people into serving him, and nearly destroyed our entire magical community before I killed him, Harry said flatly. Twice, technically, since he came back from death the first time. So yes, I'd say he was a threat, and your Chancellor feels similar, hidden, patient, powerful, and absolutely convinced of his own superiority. Yoda's ears perked up. Killed a dark wizard twice, you did. Powerful, you must be. I'm decent in a fight, Harry said modestly, but I'm better at investigation and exposing corruption. Spent years fighting a government that denied Voldemort's return, learning how bureaucracy protects dark wizards. If you want to catch your Sith Lord, you don't just fight him, you expose him so thoroughly that he can't hide anymore. That's exactly what we need to do, Merlin agreed. He turned to the council. Here's what I propose. Harry and I investigate your Chancellor using magic he can't defend against. We gather evidence, build a case, and when we have proof no one can deny, we drag him into the light and show the galaxy what he really is. And if he attacks you? Mace asked. Both wizards smiled, identical expressions of grim determination. Then we defend ourselves, Harry said simply. And trust me, between Merlin's raw power and my experience fighting dark wizards, your Sith Lord is about to learn that magic and the Force aren't the same thing, and that magic doesn't play by his rules. The Jedi Council convened an emergency closed session, with Merlin and Harry standing before them like defendants awaiting judgment. Anakin leaned against a pillar, arms crossed, watching the two wizards with barely concealed fascination. Obi-Wan stood beside him, stroking his beard, a telltale sign he was working through complex political calculations. "So let me understand this clearly," Mace Windu said, his deep voice cutting through the chamber's tension. "You both want permission to investigate the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic based on visions and what you call dark wizard instincts. Do you have any idea what kind of political catastrophe that could trigger?" "Yes," Harry said flatly. "I've triggered several. The Ministry of Magic tried to arrest me for speaking the truth about Voldemort. They called me delusional, dangerous, and a threat to social order, right up until Death Eaters attacked the Ministry itself and proved I'd been right all along." He leaned forward. "How many warning signs are you ignoring because it's politically convenient?" "We're not ignoring anything," Obi-Wan protested. "We've questioned the Chancellor's emergency powers, his expanding authority." "But you haven't actually investigated him," Merlin interrupted. "You've had concerns, voiced them quietly in rooms like this, and then gone along with his requests anyway. That's not questioning authority. That's enabling it while telling yourself you're being responsible." Yoda's ears flattened against his head, a sign of deep distress. "Harsh words, these are, but wrong they may not be. Clouded, our judgment has been. By war, by urgency, by trust in a man who has guided the Republic for years." "Exactly," Harry said. "That's how dark wizards work. They don't conquer through force first. They conquer through trust. Voldemort spent years cultivating allies in the Ministry before he made his move. When he finally struck, half the government was already working for him and the other half refused to believe it." Anakin pushed off from the pillar. "So what's your plan? Walk into the Chancellor's office and accuse him of being a Sith Lord? Because I've known Palpatine since I was 9 years old. He's been like a father to me. Forgive me for not immediately accepting that he's secretly evil." "I understand loyalty," Harry said gently, recognizing pain in Anakin's voice. "I had a mentor too, Dumbledore. Trusted him completely. Then I learned he'd been manipulating me, keeping secrets, planning my death for the greater good. Finding out hurt worse than any curse Voldemort ever hit me with." "Palpatine isn't manipulating me," Anakin insisted. "Then you won't mind us proving it," Merlin said. His eyes flashed gold. "Anakin Skywalker, answer me truthfully. Has Palpatine ever asked you to do something the Jedi Council specifically told you not to do?" Anakin's mouth opened, then closed. His silence was answer enough. "Has he encouraged you to embrace anger or emotion in ways that contradict Jedi teachings?" Another painful silence. "Has he positioned himself as the only person who truly understands you, who sees your potential, who believes in you when others don't?" "Stop," Anakin said, his voice strained. "You're twisting everything." "I'm showing you a pattern," Merlin said, his tone softer now. "I had a mentor once too, Gaius. He was kind, supportive, taught me everything about medicine and wisdom. But he also lied to me about magic, made me hide who I was, convinced me that secrecy was safety. He meant well, but his manipulation nearly destroyed me." He met Anakin's eyes. "Sometimes the people who care about us still manipulate us. Intent doesn't change impact." Mace Windu cleared his throat, redirecting the conversation. "Even if we grant you permission to investigate, how would you proceed? The Chancellor is surrounded by security, monitored constantly. You can't simply use your truth detection on him without his knowledge. Actually, we can, Harry said, pulling out a small vial of clear liquid. This is Veritaserum, a truth potion. 3 drops in someone's drink and they'll answer any question with complete honesty. They won't even know they've been dosed. That's... Obi-Wan looked disturbed. That's extraordinarily invasive, essentially mind control. It's justice, Harry countered. Would you rather respect a potential Sith Lord's privacy or protect trillions of lives? Because those are your options. Veritaserum doesn't hurt anyone, doesn't cause lasting effects, just compels honesty. If Palpatine is innocent, he'll say so and we'll apologize. If he's guilty, we'll have his confession in his own words. And you can do this without him sensing the deception? Mace asked skeptically. He won't sense anything, Merlin confirmed. Magic operates outside the Force. When I use my powers, Force sensitives feel nothing. It's why you couldn't detect me arriving, why you can't sense Harry's magic. We're blind spots in your perception. Yoda closed his eyes in deep meditation. The chamber fell silent except for the distant hum of Coruscant traffic. Finally, the ancient Jedi Master spoke. Dangerous this path is, but more dangerous doing nothing may be. Investigate you may, but rules you must follow. No assassination, no violence unless attacked first. Evidence you gather to the council you bring immediately. Clear this is. Crystal, Harry said. Perfectly, Merlin agreed. One more thing, Mace added. You work with Jedi's supervision. Obi-Wan, Anakin, you'll accompany them. Make sure they don't start a diplomatic incident or a civil war. Anakin looked like he'd rather fight a rancor barehanded, but Obi-Wan nodded acceptance. We'll keep them honest. Good luck with that, Harry muttered. We're about to commit at least a dozen crimes by your laws, but sometimes breaking the law is the only way to uphold justice. 2 hours later, the unlikely quartet stood outside Chancellor Palpatine's office. Obi-Wan had arranged a routine security briefing to get them access. Harry had his wand concealed in his jacket. Merlin's eyes flickered gold periodically as he sensed the building's occupants. Anakin looked like a man walking to his own execution. Last chance to back out, Obi-Wan said quietly. If you're wrong about this, we're not, both wizards said simultaneously. The doors opened. Palpatine's office was exactly what Harry expected. Understated luxury, walls lined with art and artifacts, and a desk positioned to make visitors feel small, while the Chancellor appeared benevolent and approachable. Classic power dynamics, Palpatine himself rose with grandfatherly warmth, his smile crinkling his eyes. Obi-Wan, Anakin, what a pleasant surprise, and you've brought guests. Chancellor, may I present Merlin and Harry Potter, Obi-Wan said formally. They're refugees from another dimension. They've offered to assist with the war effort. How fascinating. Palpatine moved around his desk, studying both wizards with what appeared to be genuine curiosity. Dimensional travelers. I've heard theories about such things, but never imagined I'd meet actual examples. Please sit. Tell me about your world. Merlin sat, his eyes never leaving Palpatine's face. It's much smaller than yours, Chancellor. 1 planet, no space travel, and our power comes from magic rather than technology. Magic? Palpatine's interest seemed to sharpen, like the Force. Different, Harry said, also sitting. The Force connects living things, right? Magic is personal, individual, and it has some interesting applications. He made a subtle gesture with his wand under the table. A basic summoning charm brought a drinking glass from Palpatine's desk into his hand, visible to everyone, impossible to miss. Palpatine's eyes widened. Remarkable. Telekinesis without the Force, that shouldn't be possible. Many things we do shouldn't be possible by your physics, Merlin said. His eyes flashed gold briefly. For instance, I can read surface thoughts, not through the Force, just by listening to the noise people's minds make. Would you like me to demonstrate? I don't think that's necessary, Palpatine said smoothly, his smile never wavering. But Harry noticed the Chancellor's hands had stilled, a tell of sudden alertness. Oh, but I insist, Merlin pressed. You're thinking about a meeting tomorrow with the banking clan representative, something about military funding, and you're concerned about someone named Dooku not reporting in on schedule. Palpatine's smile froze for a microsecond. The banking clan meeting is on my public schedule, and Count Dooku's silence concerns all Republic leadership. Lucky guesses, perhaps. Perhaps, Merlin agreed. Or perhaps I really can read minds and you're now wondering if I can see deeper than surface thoughts. The answer is yes, by the way. But that would be terribly invasive, so I won't. Not without permission. How considerate, Palpatine said dryly. He turned to Obi-Wan. Is there an actual security briefing, or is this about showing me your new magical friends? A bit of both, Obi-Wan admitted. Merlin and Harry have offered their abilities to help investigate some irregularities in the war's conduct. Intelligence leaks, coordination failures, that sort of thing. Excellent initiative, Palpatine said. I'm always pleased when people take Republic security seriously. In fact, why don't we discuss this over drinks? I have some excellent Alderaanian wine. He moved to a cabinet, pouring 4 glasses. Harry watched carefully as Palpatine's back was turned. The Chancellor's movements were too practiced, too smooth. He'd done this thousands of times, putting guests at ease with hospitality, while maintaining complete control of the situation. Palpatine distributed the glasses, keeping one for himself. To new alliances and the eventual end of this terrible war, they raised their glasses. As Palpatine drank, Merlin's eyes flashed gold again. Chancellor, may I ask a direct question? Of course. Are you now, or have you ever been, a practitioner of what the Jedi call the dark side of the Force? The room went utterly silent. Anakin looked horrified. Obi-Wan's hand moved toward his lightsaber. Palpatine's expression cycled through shock, hurt, and confusion so smoothly that Harry almost believed it was genuine. What an extraordinary accusation, Palpatine said, his voice wounded. Anakin, do you believe I'm secretly a dark side user after everything we've been through together? No, of course not, Anakin said, glaring at Merlin. This is ridiculous. We should leave. Wait, Harry said. He'd been watching Merlin's face. Merlin, what did you see? He answered the question, Merlin said slowly, his eyes still locked on Palpatine. But he didn't answer it truthfully. Every word out of his mouth since we arrived has been a lie or a misdirection. That's absurd, Palpatine protested. I'm being accused of lying because I drank wine and expressed concern about being accused of dark side practice. What kind of logic is that? The kind that comes from centuries of detecting lies, Merlin said. You're good, Chancellor. The best I've ever seen. Your micro-expressions are perfect, your emotional responses textbook. But you're still lying. He stood. You asked if I could see deeper than surface thoughts. Would you like me to demonstrate? I would not, Palpatine said, his voice hardening slightly. I don't consent to having my mind invaded by someone I met 5 minutes ago, regardless of how magical he claims to be. Which is your right, Harry interjected. But here's the thing, Chancellor. You just confirmed something important. You knew we were accusing you specifically, not asking a hypothetical question. An innocent person would have been confused. demanded clarification. A guilty person responds exactly the way you did. Deflection, emotional manipulation, and immediate focus on the accusation's illegitimacy rather than answering it. "I'm confused because the accusation is confusing," Palpatine said, his tone now carrying an edge. "And I'm insulted because it's insulting. Anakin, are you going to allow your friends to treat me this way?" Anakin stood, clearly torn. "Merlin, Harry, we should go. You're out of line." "Are we?" Harry didn't move. "Palpatine, I'm going to ask you 3 simple yes or no questions. You don't have to answer, but your refusal will tell us everything we need to know." "This is harassment," Palpatine said. "This is investigation," Harry corrected. "First question, have you ever trained in Sith techniques or philosophy?" Silence. "Second question, are you aware of the inhibitor chips implanted in clone troopers that would allow someone to override their free will?" Palpatine's eye twitched, barely visible, but Harry caught it. "Third question, are you Darth Sidious?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Palpatine's benevolent mask slipped for just a fraction of a second, and in that moment, both wizards saw something ancient, cold, and utterly malevolent looking back at them. Then the mask was back, and Palpatine was pressing an emergency comm. "Security, I need assistance in my office. We have unstable individuals making threats." "We haven't threatened anyone," Obi-Wan said, but his hand was now definitely on his lightsaber. "They're accusing me of being a Sith Lord," Palpatine said into the comm, his voice carrying just the right amount of fear and indignation. "Please hurry." "Clever," Merlin observed. "Call security, make us the threat, force us to either leave or look like attackers. Well played, Chancellor, but we're not done with you." "I think you are," Palpatine said coldly. All pretense of warmth had vanished. "You'll leave now, or I'll have you arrested for attempted intimidation of a Republic official." Harry stood slowly, meeting Palpatine's eyes. "You know what the worst thing about dark wizards is? They always think they're smarter than everyone else. Voldemort made that mistake. It cost him everything." "I have no idea who this Voldemort is," Palpatine replied, "but I suggest you leave before this escalates further." The 4 of them left as security arrived. Once outside, Anakin rounded on the wizards. "What the hell was that? You just accused the Supreme Chancellor of being a Sith Lord to his face." "Yes," Merlin said calmly. "And his reaction told us everything. An innocent person would have been confused, maybe offended, but willing to answer questions to clear their name. He refused every question, called security immediately, and made us the threat. Classic guilty behavior. Or classic I don't appreciate being accused of crimes behavior," Anakin shot back. "Anakin, he knew about the inhibitor chips," Obi-Wan said quietly. Harry mentioned them and Palpatine's eye twitched. "That's classified information. Barely a dozen people in the entire Republic know about those chips. How would Palpatine know unless he was involved in their creation?" Anakin fell silent, the evidence warring with his loyalty. "We're not asking you to believe us," Harry said gently. "We're asking you to investigate. Look at the evidence. Question the things you've accepted without thinking. And when you're ready to admit we're right, we'll be here to help you stop him." They walked away, leaving Anakin standing in the hallway, his world crumbling around him. Inside his office, Palpatine stared at the door through which the wizards had left. His expression was thoughtful, calculating, and for the first time in decades, genuinely concerned. "Interesting," he murmured to himself. "Very interesting indeed." He activated a secure comm channel. "Lord Tyrannus, we have a problem. 2 force-blind magic users who can detect lies and read minds. They'll need to be eliminated before they become a real threat." Count Dooku's holographic form appeared. "Magic users, Master? I thought such things were myths." "So did I," Sidious replied. "But myths or not, they're dangerous. They almost exposed me in front of the Jedi. Make this your priority. Find Merlin and Harry Potter and kill them both." The Jedi Temple's archives were vast, containing knowledge from thousands of worlds spanning millennia. Harry Potter sat at a data terminal, his wand tracing glowing patterns in the air as he cross-referenced Republic financial records with military deployments. Beside him, Merlin's eyes flickered between gold and normal as he used magic to scan through documents faster than any computer could process. "This is insane," Harry muttered, pulling up another file. "Look at this. The banking clan finances both the Republic's clone production and the Separatist droid factories. They're literally funding both sides of the war. And getting rich doing it," Merlin added, highlighting several transactions. "Every battle consumes resources. Every resource must be replaced. Every replacement generates profit. It's the perfect economic model if you don't care about the millions dying." Jocasta Nu, the archive's elderly keeper, approached with obvious disapproval. "You've been here for 6 hours, accessing classified financial records without proper authorization. Master Windu may have granted you limited investigative powers, but this is overreaching." "Is it?" Harry looked up, his green eyes hard. "Because I'm seeing evidence of the largest financial conspiracy in galactic history, and you're worried about authorization protocols." "The Jedi Order has rules for a reason, young man." "So did the Ministry of Magic," Harry shot back. "Right up until those rules got my godfather killed and allowed Voldemort to infiltrate the government. Sometimes following rules is just another way of enabling evil." Merlin placed a calming hand on Harry's shoulder. "What he means, Madame Nu, is that we've found something the Council needs to see immediately. May we use your holographic conference system?" "I suppose," Jocasta said stiffly, "but I'll be reporting this breach of protocol." "Report away," Harry said, already setting up the holo projector. "I've been reported to authorities so many times I've lost count. Never stopped me from doing the right thing." Minutes later, Mace Windu, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin appeared as blue-tinged holograms around the table. Ahsoka Tano, Anakin's Padawan, stood beside her master's projection, her curiosity evident. "This had better be important," Mace said. "We're in the middle of battle planning." "It's important," Merlin confirmed. He gestured and documents began floating in the air between them, organized by his magic into a three-dimensional conspiracy web. "We've traced Republic military funding back through 17 shell corporations, 12 banking intermediaries, and 5 supposedly independent investment firms. Every single trail leads to the same source." "And what source is that?" Obi-Wan asked. "Chancellor Palpatine's private accounts," Harry said bluntly. "Not his official government salary. Private accounts hidden under pseudonyms and corporate structures so complex it would take Republic investigators years to untangle. But magic doesn't care about corporate complexity. Merlin can literally see through the lies." The holograms were silent. Ahsoka spoke first, her young voice uncertain. "You're saying the Chancellor is personally funding the war, both sides?" "Not just funding," Merlin corrected. "Orchestrating. Look at this pattern. Every time peace negotiations gain momentum, there's a sudden separatist attack that derails them. Every time the Republic gains a decisive advantage, supply line problems or intelligence failures let the separatists recover. This war is being managed, prolonged deliberately." "To what end?" Yoda asked, his ears flat against his head. "Power," Harry said simply. "It's always power. Create a crisis, position yourself as the only solution, Accumulate emergency authority, and by the time people realize what's happened, you're too powerful to oppose. Voldemort did it, Grindelwald before him. Every dark wizard in history follows the same playbook. Mace's hologram leaned forward. Even if this is true, how do we prove it? Financial records can be faked. Shell corporations can be coincidental. We need direct evidence that Palpatine is Darth Sidious. We have direct evidence, Merlin said. His reaction when we confronted him. Every word was a lie. Every deflection was calculated. I've been detecting lies for 800 years, Master Windu. I know what guilty looks like. Your personal ability to sense deception isn't evidence a Senate tribunal would accept, Obi-Wan pointed out. They'd call it hearsay, mysticism, unreliable testimony from dimensional refugees with unknown motives. Then we get different evidence, Harry said. He pulled out the vial of Veritaserum again. We dose him with this, ask him directly if he's Sidious, and record his confession. Can't argue with his own words. That's illegal under Republic law, Anakin interjected. Non-consensual administration of mind-altering substances. You'd be arrested, and the evidence would be inadmissible. Then we do it illegally and release the recording to the public, Harry countered. Force the Senate to act regardless of admissibility. I've learned that sometimes you can't wait for the system to work. You have to drag the truth into daylight and let public outrage do the rest. Dangerous that path is, Yoda warned. Vigilante justice it becomes. Chaos it creates. Chaos is already here, Merlin said. You're fighting a war orchestrated by your own chancellor. Clone troopers have chips in their heads ready to make them murder you on command. How much worse can chaos get? Before anyone could answer, proximity alarms shrieked through the archives. Jocasta News console lit up with warnings. Intruders, multiple contacts heading directly for this section. The holograms winked out as the Jedi rushed to respond to the emergency. Harry and Merlin were on their feet instantly, wands raised. How many? Harry asked. 12, Merlin said, his eyes glowing gold as he sensed through the temple. Armed, force-sensitive, moving with military precision. They're coming for us. The archive doors exploded inward. Through the smoke came figures in dark armor, Inquisitors, Palpatine's personal dark side enforcers, their double-bladed red lightsabers spinning with lethal intent. Merlin and Potter, the lead Inquisitor's voice was mechanically distorted. You're wanted dead or alive. The Emperor prefers dead. Emperor? Harry raised an eyebrow even as he deflected a thrown lightsaber with a shield charm. He's not Emperor yet. Bit premature with the title, aren't you? Semantics, the Inquisitor hissed, charging forward. Stupefy, Harry's stunning spell, hit the first Inquisitor square in the chest. The dark side user crashed backward, their force resistance meaningless against magic they'd never encountered. Expelliarmus! 2 lightsabers ripped from their wielder's hands. Merlin's eyes blazed pure gold, and he threw out his hands. Telekinetic force, not the force, but raw magical power, picked up 3 Inquisitors and slammed them into the ceiling hard enough to crack stone. Get out of here, Jocasta! Protect the younglings! The elderly Jedi didn't need to be told twice. She fled toward the temple's residential sections, while Harry and Merlin faced down the remaining attackers. They're not stopping, Harry observed, blocking a lightsaber strike with a Protego shield that sparked and held. Professional fighters, used to killing. Then we don't hold back, Merlin said grimly. His form blurred, and suddenly there were 5 Merlins, each one moving independently, surrounding the Inquisitors. Doppelgangers! Let's see them handle multiple targets. The Inquisitors tried to sense which was real through the Force, But magic-created duplicates didn't register as alive or dead. They simply existed outside force detection. An Inquisitor lunged at one Merlin only to have their lightsaber pass through the illusion, while the real Merlin hit them from behind with a concussive spell that shattered armor and bone. Incarcerus! Harry's spell wrapped an Inquisitor in magical ropes that constricted with crushing force. The dark side user tried to break free with the force, but the ropes were magical constructs. They didn't obey physical laws. Stay down! Another Inquisitor unleashed force lightning at Harry. He raised the Elder Wand and the lightning bent around him, redirected by a shield charm specifically designed to handle magical electricity. Been hit by worse from Death Eaters. You'll have to do better than... The Inquisitor was suddenly beside him, moving with force-enhanced speed. The lightsaber came down in a killing arc. Apparitium! Harry's revealing charm lit up the Inquisitor's armor, exposing a critical weakness in the chest plate. Defindo! The cutting curse sliced through the gap, and the Inquisitor collapsed. Merlin dropped his illusions and faced the remaining 5 attackers with cold fury. Last chance. Leave now, tell Palpatine his secret is out, or I stop holding back. The Emperor's will is absolute, an Inquisitor replied, their entire squad preparing for a coordinated attack. So be it. Merlin's eyes blazed, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 8 centuries. Dragon's breath. Fire erupted from his hands, not normal fire, but magical dragon fire that burned white-hot and could melt stone. The Inquisitors threw up force barriers, but dragon fire consumed energy rather than being blocked by it. Their barriers shattered. Their armor melted. They screamed. Harry stunned the survivors before they could burn to death. Merlin, we need them alive for questioning. The flames cut off instantly. Merlin stumbled slightly, the massive spell having drained even his considerable reserves. Right, sorry, lost my temper. They stood among unconscious or injured Inquisitors, the archives burning from residual dragon fire. Harry started casting aguamenti, water creation spells, to douse the flames while Merlin used magic to bind their prisoners. They'll send more, Harry said grimly. Palpatine knows we're onto him. He's moving to eliminate us before we can expose him. Then we move faster. Merlin pulled out a small crystal from his pocket. This is a communication focus. I can broadcast through every holonet relay in Coruscant simultaneously. We gather our evidence, compile Palpatine's confession through Veritaserum, and broadcast it to the entire planet before he can stop us. That's treason, a new voice said. They spun to find Anakin standing in the archive entrance, lightsaber drawn but not ignited. Ahsoka stood beside him, her own weapons ready. Behind them, a full battalion of clone troopers aimed blasters at the 2 wizards. Treason against what? Harry asked. A corrupt government led by a Sith Lord? Anakin, wake up. Look around you. Palpatine just sent assassins to kill us inside the Jedi Temple. Does that sound like something an innocent Chancellor would do? He'd say you're dangerous, Anakin replied, but his voice lacked conviction. That you're trying to destabilize the Republic. And you'd believe that? Merlin stepped forward, his bound prisoners floating behind him as evidence. After everything we've shown you, the financial records, the inhibitor chips, his refusal to answer basic questions, and now this, armed dark side users attacking us in the archives. How much evidence do you need? Ahsoka lowered her lightsaber slightly. Master, they have a point. Why would the Chancellor send Inquisitors unless he's trying to hide something? Snips, not now. Yes, now. Ahsoka's Leku twitched with agitation. I've been listening to their investigation. They're right about the financial conspiracy. The numbers don't lie. Someone is funding both sides. and the trails lead to Palpatine. Trails that could be faked, Anakin insisted, but he was clearly struggling. Merlin, Harry, if you're right, if Palpatine really is Sidious, then everything I've believed for years is a lie. He's been my friend, my mentor, the one person who believed in me when the Council didn't. You're asking me to accept that was all manipulation. I know how hard that is, Harry said gently, lowering his wand. Dumbledore was my mentor too. Finding out he'd been keeping secrets, planning to sacrifice me for the greater good, it nearly broke me. But you know what? The truth mattered more than my comfort. Justice mattered more than my feelings. And this is about justice, Merlin added. Not revenge, not politics, but stopping a Sith Lord from committing genocide. Because that's what Order 66 is, Anakin. Mass murder of every Jedi in the galaxy, executed by the soldiers you trust. We can prevent that, but only if you let us expose Palpatine before he gives the order. Anakin was silent for a long moment. The clone troopers waited for his command. Ahsoka watched her master with concern, and Harry and Merlin stood ready to fight or flee depending on what the conflicted Jedi decided. Finally, Anakin deactivated his lightsaber. You have 12 hours. 12 hours to gather irrefutable evidence and present it to the full council. If you can prove Palpatine is Sidious beyond any doubt, I'll stand with you. But if you're wrong, if this is some dimensional refugee conspiracy theory, I'll arrest you myself. That's all we need, Harry said. 12 hours to save the galaxy. I've worked with worse deadlines. Much worse, Merlin agreed. Come on, Harry. We've got a Sith Lord to expose and not much time to do it. As they left the archives with their bound prisoners, Commander Rex approached Anakin quietly. Sir, what just happened? Did those wizards just fight off a dozen Inquisitors and you let them walk away? I let them do their job, Anakin replied, watching them go. Rex, if they're right, if there are chips in your heads, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Rex touched his helmet unconsciously. Sir, we trust you with our lives. Always have. But if there's something in our heads we don't know about. His voice trailed off, the implications too terrible to voice. Then we'll deal with it, Anakin promised. Together. In his office, Palpatine watched surveillance footage of the archive battle with cold calculation. Merlin and Potter had defeated 12 of his best Inquisitors with contemptuous ease. Their magic was even more powerful than he'd feared. Darth Tyrannus, are you in position? He asked via secure comm. Count Dooku's hologram appeared. Yes, Master. I'm on Coruscant, prepared to move against the wizards when you give the order. Wait until they're isolated from Jedi protection, Sidious instructed. Then kill them both. No mercy, no hesitation. They've become the greatest threat to our plans. As you wish, my master. Sidious cut the connection and stared out at the Coruscant skyline. Two-dimensional refugees had done what the Jedi hadn't managed in 13 years. They'd identified him, gathered evidence, and were now actively working to expose him. For the first time in decades, Darth Sidious felt something he'd almost forgotten. Genuine concern that his plans might fail. But he hadn't become the galaxy's most powerful Sith Lord through luck. He'd survived through adaptation, manipulation, and the willingness to accelerate plans when necessary. If Merlin and Potter wanted to force a confrontation, then so be it. But the battlefield would be of his choosing, and the outcome would end with 2 dead wizards and a galaxy that never learned the truth. Harry and Merlin worked through the night in a secured room deep within the Jedi Temple, surrounded by datapads, holographic projections, and magical constructs that glowed with golden light. The captured Inquisitors were bound and unconscious in a corner. guarded by clone troopers whose loyalty Anakin personally vouched for. "Right," Harry said, uncorking the Veritaserum vial. "We dose one of these Inquisitors, get them to confess who sent them, and record everything. That gives us direct testimony linking Palpatine to the assassination attempt." "Good start, but not enough," Merlin replied, his eyes scanning through another layer of financial records. "We need the big confession, Palpatine himself admitting he's Sidious. That's the evidence that breaks his political protection." "Which means getting close enough to dose him," Harry mused. "He's not going to invite us back for tea after we accused him of being a Sith Lord." Ahsoka entered carrying 3 steaming mugs of caf, the galaxy's version of coffee. "Master Skywalker sent these, said you'd need the energy." She set them down and looked at the bound Inquisitors. "Are you really going to use a mind control potion on them?" "It's not mind control," Harry explained. "Veritaserum compels honesty. They stay conscious, aware, and in control of themselves. They just can't lie. It's no different than what Jedi do with Force persuasion." "The Jedi don't use the Force to override free will," Ahsoka protested. "Don't you?" Merlin looked up from his work. "What about the mind trick? These aren't the droids you're looking for. That's literally rewriting someone's perception and memory. At least Veritaserum just makes people tell the truth they already know." Ahsoka opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. "That's actually a good point. I never thought about it that way." "Most people don't," Harry said. "They're comfortable with familiar magic, but scared of unfamiliar magic. It's all about perspective." He approached the nearest Inquisitor and carefully administered 3 drops of Veritaserum. "Renervate." The Inquisitor gasped awake, immediately struggling against the magical bonds. Then their expression went slack as the potion took effect. "What's your name?" Harry asked. "Seventh Sister." The answer came automatically without resistance. "Who sent you to kill us?" "Chancellor Palpatine. He is Darth Sidious, the Sith Master. He commanded us to eliminate the dimensional refugees before they could expose his identity." Merlin was recording everything on a holocam. "How long have you known Palpatine is Sidious?" 3 years, since he recruited me from the Jedi Temple and trained me in the dark side. He promised power and freedom from the Jedi's restrictive teachings." "What is Order 66? Harry pressed. "A command programmed into all clone troopers through inhibitor chips. When Sidious gives the order, every clone will immediately execute their Jedi commanders. It's designed to eliminate the Jedi Order in a single coordinated strike." Ahsoka's face went pale. "The clones, they'd kill us? Rex would kill Master Skywalker?" "Not willingly," Seventh Sister continued in the same emotionless tone. "The chips override free will. The clones won't even remember making the choice. One moment they're loyal soldiers. The next, they're executing Order 66 without question or hesitation." "And when is Sidious planning to give this order?" Merlin asked. "Soon, within days. He's been waiting for the perfect moment when enough Jedi are scattered across the galaxy, isolated with their clone battalions, unable to coordinate a defense." Harry stopped the recording. "That's enough for now." He looked at Ahsoka, whose hands were shaking. "You okay?" "No," she whispered. "Rex, Fives, all the clones we've fought beside, they're slaves with bombs in their heads, waiting to go off. And we never knew. The Jedi never even looked." "Because you trusted," Merlin said gently. "And trust isn't weakness, Ahsoka. But blind trust? That's dangerous. You have to verify. Question, test." His eyes glowed gold. "Which is exactly what we're doing now." The door opened and Obi-Wan entered with Mace Windu. Both Jedi looked exhausted, their robes singed from recent combat. The Separatists just launched simultaneous attacks on 6 Republic outposts, Obi-Wan reported. Perfectly coordinated, hitting us when our forces are stretched thin, dealing with the Inquisitor attack here. It's almost like someone planned it. Someone did, Harry said, showing them the recorded confession. Watch this. They watched in grim silence. When Seventh Sister confessed about Order 66, Mace's hand moved to his lightsaber as if to defend against an invisible threat. Inhibitor chips, Mace said slowly. We've been leading an army programmed to kill us. For 3 years. How did we miss this? Obi-Wan's voice was hollow. How did the entire Jedi Council miss that our clone army has built-in betrayal protocols? Because Sidious is that good, Merlin said. He's been clouding your vision through the Force, manipulating events, ensuring you only saw what he wanted you to see. But magic doesn't work through the Force, so Harry and I can see clearly what you've been blind to. Mace studied the 2 wizards with newfound respect. You've done in 2 days what we failed to do in 13 years of war. You've exposed the conspiracy. We've exposed part of it, Harry corrected, but we still need Palpatine's direct confession. This testimony proves the Inquisitors work for him and that Order 66 exists, but a good lawyer could claim the Inquisitors are lying or delusional. We need Palpatine's own words. Which means getting close enough to dose him with your truth potion, Obi-Wan said. He won't allow that willingly. Then we don't ask permission, Merlin said, standing and stretching. His eyes flashed gold as he consulted his prophetic senses. In 4 hours, Palpatine has a private meeting with the banking clan representative. Just the 2 of them, no guards inside the office. That's our window. How do you know his schedule? Mace demanded. I looked into the future and saw it, Merlin said simply. One of the perks of being a prophetic warlock. The future isn't fixed, but likely events cast shadows I can read. Can you see if we succeed? Ahsoka asked hopefully. I see 2 futures, Merlin admitted. In one, we expose Palpatine and save the Jedi Order. In the other, Order 66 happens, and the galaxy descends into tyranny. Which future becomes real depends on choices made in the next few hours. Harry pulled out the invisibility cloak. Then we'd better make the right choices. Merlin and I will infiltrate Palpatine's office under the cloak. We dose him with Veritaserum, record his confession, and broadcast it to the entire Senate before he can stop us. That's breaking into the Chancellor's office, Obi-Wan pointed out. If caught, you'll be tried for treason. Only if Palpatine wins, Harry said with a grim smile. If we succeed, we're heroes. If we fail, we're dead. Either way, treason charges are the least of our concerns. We should send Jedi with you, Mace said, as backup. No, Merlin refused. Palpatine can sense Jedi through the Force. He'll know you're coming before you get close. But Harry and I are Force blind. We're invisible to his precognition. That's our advantage. Besides, Harry added, you need to prepare for what happens after we expose him. Palpatine won't go quietly. He'll have loyalists, security forces, maybe even parts of the military that side with him. The Jedi need to be ready to protect the Senate and secure key facilities. Mace nodded slowly. Very well. But if this goes wrong, it won't, both wizards said simultaneously. 3 hours later, Harry and Merlin stood invisible under the cloak outside Palpatine's office. Through the doors, they heard voices, Palpatine's smooth politician's tones and a Moon's nasal accent, discussing military loan extensions. Remember, Harry whispered, we need him to drink something with Veritaserum in it. Water, wine, calf, doesn't matter. 3 drops and he's compelled to tell the truth. I can create a distraction if needed, Merlin whispered back. Make him turn away long enough for you to dose his drink. They waited. The meeting continued. Boring discussion of interest rates and collateral requirements. Finally, the moon banker stood to leave. "Thank you for your time, Chancellor. The banking clan appreciates your continued support." "The Republic values our partnership," Palpatine replied smoothly. "Please give my regards to Chairman Sandhill." The moon left. Palpatine was alone. This was their chance. Harry and Merlin slipped through the door as it closed, the cloak rendering them completely undetectable. Palpatine moved to his desk and poured himself a glass of wine, completely unaware of the two invisible wizards in his office. Merlin's eyes flashed gold, and he sent a telepathic message directly into Harry's mind. "On 3, 1, 2, 3. A golden shimmer appeared across the room, one of Merlin's illusions creating a flash of light and movement. Palpatine's head snapped toward it, his hand moving toward his concealed lightsaber. In that moment, Harry moved with seeker reflexes honed by years of Quidditch. 3 drops of Veritaserum hit Palpatine's wine glass. They dissolved instantly, leaving no trace. Palpatine turned back to his desk, his senses probing for threats through the Force. He felt nothing. Force-blind wizards left no impression to detect. Satisfied it was just a glitch in the window transparencies, he lifted his wine glass and drank. The Veritaserum took effect immediately. Palpatine's eyes widened slightly as he felt the potion's magic override his mental defenses, something the Force couldn't protect against because it wasn't a Force-based attack. Harry pulled out his wand and cast a recording charm, the magical equivalent of a holocam but impossible to jam or detect through technology. Merlin dropped the invisibility cloak, revealing them both. Palpatine's shock was gratifying. How did you? Doesn't matter, Harry said. What matters is you're under the influence of Veritaserum now, and you're going to answer our questions truthfully. Are you Darth Sidious? Palpatine tried to resist. His considerable Force abilities, his decades of mental discipline, his Sith training, all of it fought against the compulsion to speak. But Veritaserum wasn't of this universe. It operated on magical principles that Sith mastery couldn't overcome. Yes, Palpatine hissed through gritted teeth. I am Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith. Merlin grinned viciously. Did you orchestrate the Clone Wars? Yes, I manipulated both the Republic and Separatists, created the conflict, prolonged it, used it to gain emergency powers, and positioned myself to transform the Republic into an empire with me as Emperor. What is Order 66? Harry demanded. A command embedded in clone trooper programming that will cause them to execute their Jedi commanders immediately upon receiving the order, designed to eliminate the Jedi Order in a single coordinated strike. Palpatine's face was twisted with rage at his own words. I created the clone army specifically for this purpose. The war was just a mechanism to place Jedi alongside their future executioners. How many people have you killed to achieve your goals? Merlin asked. Thousands directly, millions indirectly through the war. I sacrificed entire planets to maintain the conflict and ensure my rise to power. Each word was torn from Palpatine against his will, his hatred palpable in the Force. And what's your endgame? Harry pressed. What happens after you eliminate the Jedi? I will rule the galaxy as Emperor, disband the Senate once I no longer need it, crush all opposition through fear and military might, transform the Republic into a totalitarian regime that will last 1,000 years with me as its immortal ruler. The confession was complete, damning, undeniable. Harry had it all recorded in magical format that couldn't be technologically altered or disputed. Got everything? Merlin asked. Every word, Harry confirmed. Ready to broadcast? Almost, Merlin said. His eyes blazed gold, and he reached into Palpatine's mind with telepathic force, ripping through the Sith Lord's mental shields. I want to see it, all of it, every manipulation, every murder, every lie. Palpatine screamed, not in pain but in fury, as Merlin extracted memory after memory. Naboo's invasion, Qui-Gon's death arranged to traumatize Obi-Wan, Dooku's recruitment, the Clone Army's commission, Sifo Dyas's assassination, years of corruption, carefully orchestrated tragedies, and systematic destruction of everything the Republic stood for. "I've got it all," Merlin said, his voice cold with anger. "Every crime, every victim, everything." The Veritaserum was beginning to wear off. Palpatine's resistance was returning, and with it came dark side power that made the office's temperature drop 10 degrees. "You've made a mistake," Palpatine said, his voice transforming from the Chancellor's grandfatherly tone to Sidious's rasping hatred. "Did you truly think I'd drink anything without checking for poison? I sensed the foreign substance the moment it touched my tongue. I chose to answer truthfully because I knew what was coming next." "And what's that?" Harry asked, though he already knew. Palpatine's form blurred, and suddenly Darth Sidious stood before them in full Sith regalia, dark robes, yellow eyes, face twisted by decades of dark side corruption. His lightsabers appeared in his hands with a snap hiss. "Your deaths," Sidious said, "and with you dead, your evidence becomes nothing. The recording can be called a forgery. The Inquisitor testimony can be dismissed as coerced. And I remain Chancellor of the Republic, free to execute Order 66 whenever I choose." "Except we already broadcast the confession," Merlin said, pulling out his communication crystal. It glowed with golden light. "To every holonet terminal on Coruscant, every senator, every news agency, every military command center, as we speak, trillions of beings are watching you admit to being Darth Sidious." Sidious's expression transformed into something beyond rage. "Impossible. I have jammers, countermeasures." "That block technology," Harry interrupted. "Not magic. Your force abilities don't work on us. Your technological defenses don't stop magical broadcasting. You've been outplayed, Palpatine. The galaxy knows what you are now." "Then I'll kill you, destroy the evidence, and claim it was faked by separatist agents." Sidious lunged forward with force-enhanced speed, his lightsabers blurring toward the wizards. "Protego Maxima!" Harry's shield charm erupted between them, and the lightsabers sparked off the magical barrier. "You're not killing anyone today." "Merlin, get out of here!" Harry shouted. "Get to the Senate chamber and make sure they arrest him." "I'm not leaving you alone with a Sith Lord. I've fought Voldemort. This is no different. Go!" Merlin hesitated 1 second, then vanished, teleporting in a flash of golden light that left Sidious disoriented. "Now it's just you and me," Harry said, his wand raised and the Elder Wand humming with power. "And I've beaten darker wizards than you." "You have no idea what darkness is, boy," Sidious hissed. Force lightning erupted from his hands. Harry's shield charm caught the lightning and redirected it into the walls, where it scorched priceless artwork. "Actually, I've faced darkness that would make your Sith philosophy look like a children's bedtime story. Want to test me?" The battle between Wizard and Sith Lord shook Palpatine's office to its foundations, and across Coruscant, the galaxy watched a Chancellor's lies finally, irrevocably, be exposed. The Senate chamber erupted into chaos as Merlin materialized in the center podium, his magical arrival causing senators from 1,000 worlds to gasp in shock. His eyes blazed pure gold as he amplified his voice through magic, making it echo through the massive arena like the voice of a god. "Senators of the Republic, I am Merlin, and I bring evidence of the greatest betrayal in galactic history." Security forces immediately surrounded him, But Merlin simply gestured and their blasters flew from their hands, clattering harmlessly across the floor. Bail Organa stood in his hovering platform, his face a mixture of shock and vindication. "Let him speak," Bail shouted. "The Holonet broadcast, we all saw it. Palpatine confessed to being Darth Sidious." "A forgery," shouted a senator from the core worlds. "Dimensional refugees trying to destabilize our government." "No forgery," Merlin said, his voice cutting through the din. His eyes flashed and suddenly holographic projections filled the chamber, not from technology but from his magic manifesting memories he'd ripped from Palpatine's mind. "These are the Chancellor's actual memories. Watch." The Senate fell silent as they witnessed decades of conspiracy through Palpatine's own eyes. The manipulation of Naboo's invasion, the assassination of Master Sifo Dyas, the commissioning of the clone army under false pretenses, the creation of the separatist movement through Dooku. Every calculated move, every murder, every lie, all displayed in undeniable clarity. Padme Amidala stood, tears streaming down her face. "He used us, all of us. The war, the emergency powers, the erosion of democracy. It was all his design." "This can't be real," another senator protested weakly. "Chancellor Palpatine has served the Republic faithfully, while secretly engineering its destruction," Merlin's voice thundered. "And in case you doubt the memories, here's physical evidence." He gestured and the bound Inquisitors appeared through magical teleportation, dropping onto the Senate floor. Dark side users trained by Sidious himself. Question them under oath, they'll confirm everything. Maz Amedda, Palpatine's chief aide, stepped forward. "This is a coup attempt. Where is the Chancellor? What have you done with him?" "He's currently trying to kill my partner," Merlin said bluntly. "Harry Potter is holding him off in his office. I suggest we send every available Jedi and security force to arrest Darth Sidious before he escapes or causes more damage." In the Chancellor's office, that arrest was looking increasingly unlikely. Harry ducked under a telekinetically thrown desk, rolled behind a pillar, and fired back with a reductor curse that blew a hole through the wall where Sidious had been standing a split second before. "You're fast," Harry admitted, breathing hard. "I'll give you that." "I've been fighting for longer than your pathetic civilization has existed, boy," Sidious snarled, his lightsabers spinning in defensive patterns that deflected 3 stunning spells in rapid succession. "Your magic is impressive but undisciplined, random, chaotic. The dark side is focused, pure, absolute." "Yeah, Voldemort said the same thing," Harry retorted, casting a nonverbal incendio that set Sidious's robes on fire. The Sith Lord extinguished them with a force push, right before I killed him, twice. Sidious's response was a wave of force lightning, so intense it turned the air to plasma. Harry's shield charm held for 3 seconds before shattering, and he felt the electricity course through his body. His muscles seized. His wand nearly fell from his hand. "No," he thought desperately, "not like this. Not when we're so close." He remembered the graveyard with Voldemort, remembered facing death and choosing to fight anyway, remembered that the Elder Wand answered to masters who faced death without flinching. "Expecto Patronum!" The silver stag erupted from his wand, and Sidious's lightning collided with pure life and joy made manifest. The Patronus couldn't be destroyed by dark side energy. It was antithetical to darkness itself, powered by the happiest memories Harry possessed. Sidious's eyes widened as the lightning was pushed back, his attack rendered useless against magic that literally couldn't coexist with darkness. "What is that?" "My Patronus," Harry said, standing despite his injuries. "A guardian made of happiness and hope, and the dark side can't touch it." He pushed forward, and the silver stag charged at Sidious with its antlers lowered. The Sith Lord was forced to dodge, his decades of combat experience meaning nothing against an opponent that operated on completely different principles. He tried to force-crush the Patronus, but there was nothing physical to crush. He tried to attack Harry, but the stag blocked every attempt. "You can't win," Harry said. "Your secret's out. The Senate knows. The Jedi know. The whole galaxy knows you're Sidious. Even if you kill me, you've lost." "I haven't lost until I'm dead," Sidious screamed. He raised both hands, and the entire office began to collapse. Walls cracked. The ceiling fell. Windows exploded outward in a shower of transparasteel. Harry cast a Protego Maxima that created a dome around himself, but he was being buried under rubble. His shield was holding but wouldn't last forever under tons of collapsing building. Then golden light blazed through the destruction. Merlin appeared in a flash of teleportation, his eyes glowing like twin suns. "Harry, hold on!" "Little busy," Harry gasped as another section of ceiling crashed down on his shield. Merlin's magic exploded outward with the force of a bomb. Every piece of rubble, every chunk of duracrete, every fragment of destroyed office furniture froze in midair. The young warlock stood with his arms outstretched, holding up an entire collapsing building through sheer willpower. "Now would be a good time for a finishing spell," Merlin shouted, sweat pouring down. His face from the effort. Harry saw Sidious trying to escape through the wreckage, using the chaos to flee. Not this time. He'd let Voldemort escape too many times. Not again. Accio Palpatine. The summoning charm was designed for objects, not people. But the Elder Wand was the most powerful wand ever created, and Harry was its true master. The spell grabbed Darth Sidious and yanked him back through the suspended rubble, dragging him inexorably toward Harry's outstretched wand. No. Sidious tried to resist with force telekinesis, anchoring himself to debris. But magic and the Force operated on different principles. The Accio charm didn't care about force resistance. It simply summoned. Sidious was pulled within arm's reach of Harry. The Sith Lord's lightsaber came up for a killing strike. Expelliarmus! The disarming charm, the spell that had saved Harry's life more times than he could count, ripped both lightsabers from Sidious's hands and sent them flying into the wreckage. The Sith Lord stood disarmed, powerless, facing two wizards who'd systematically destroyed his entire conspiracy. "Incarcerus," Harry said almost gently. Magical ropes wrapped around Sidious, binding him completely. Merlin let the rubble drop, but slowly, carefully, using his magic to guide it away from anyone who might be below. The destruction was immense, but no innocents were hurt. "Is it over?" Merlin asked, his voice exhausted. "Not yet," Harry replied. He pulled out the resurrection stone and whispered, "Lily Potter, James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin." The ghosts of his loved ones materialized, not truly the dead, but echoes and memories given form. They looked at Harry with pride. "You did it, son," James's echo said. "Another dark wizard defeated. And this time you had help," Sirius added with his trademark grin. "About time you learned to work with a team." "This Sith Lord," Lily's echo studied Sidious with ethereal wisdom. "He's afraid. For the first time in decades, he's genuinely afraid. Because you've done what no Jedi could. You've exposed him completely." "Good," Harry said simply. He dismissed the echoes and turned to find Jedi Masters, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and a full battalion of clone troopers surrounding the ruins of Palpatine's office. "Harry Potter," Mace said slowly, "did you just summon the dead?" "Sort of. Long story. More importantly, we've captured Darth Sidious." Harry gestured at the bound Sith Lord. "He's confessed on record. The Senate has seen the evidence. and now he's under arrest. I believe that's what you call checkmate." Sidious's eyes burned with hatred. "This changes nothing. Order 66 is still programmed into every clone. One word from me." "Won't work," Merlin interrupted. He held up a small device that looked like a crystal fused with circuit boards. "While Harry was fighting you, I was busy. This is a magical technological hybrid I invented about 10 minutes ago. It broadcasts a countersignal that deactivates inhibitor chips within a 50-kilometer radius, and I've placed 20 of them across Coruscant." He smiled with vicious satisfaction. "Every clone trooper on this planet is free from your programming. Order 66 is broken. Your genocide is prevented. You've lost, Sidious. Completely, absolutely, irrevocably." Sidious opened his mouth to scream defiance, and Harry cast a silencing charm. The Sith Lord's mouth moved, but no sound emerged. After decades of manipulating the galaxy through words, he'd been reduced to impotent silence. "Get him out of my sight," Mace said, his voice cold with righteous anger. Clone troopers, now freed from their programming and fully aware of what they'd almost been forced to do, took Sidious into custody with barely restrained violence. Commander Cody approached Merlin. "Sir, we almost killed you, all the Jedi. We would have done it and never known why." "But you didn't," Merlin said gently, "because Harry and I stopped it. That's what matters." "We owe you our free will," Cody said, and the emotion in his voice spoke for every clone in the army. "We won't forget that." Obi-Wan looked at the destruction of Palpatine's office, the bound Sith Lord being taken away, and the two exhausted wizards who'd saved the galaxy. "I don't suppose you two would consider staying. The Republic, the real Republic, not Palpatine's version, could use heroes like you." "We need to find a way home," Harry said. "But until we do, yes, we'll stay and help clean up this mess." "Good," Obi-Wan replied with a slight smile. "Because there's the small matter of Count Dooku, General Grievous, and an entire separatist military that's about to learn their puppet master has been arrested. This war isn't over, it's just stopped being manipulated." "Then we'll help end it properly," Merlin said. His eyes flashed gold. "I'm seeing the future again. Multiple paths. Most of them lead to peace, but a few lead to chaos if we're not careful." "What do we need to be careful about?" Mace asked. "Palpatine's supporters, corporate interests who profited from the war, military officers who gained power through emergency measures. They'll resist returning to democracy." Merlin's expression turned grim. "We've cut off the head of the serpent, but its body still writhes. The next few weeks will determine if the Republic survives or if something worse rises from Sidious's ashes." In the Senate chamber, Bail Organa stood before his colleagues with a mixture of grief and hope. "Fellow senators, we've witnessed the truth. Darth Sidious, Chancellor Palpatine, manipulated us all. He created a war, granted himself emergency powers, and came within days of executing every Jedi in the galaxy. We've been complicit in our own destruction." "What do we do now?" Padme asked. "We rebuild," Bail said firmly. "True democracy, true oversight, true accountability. No more emergency powers, no more blind trust in any one person, and we owe an enormous debt to two-dimensional refugees who saw what we couldn't." Mas Amedda stood, his expression troubled. "I worked for Palpatine for years. I should have seen—" "He fooled everyone," Padme interrupted. "That was his gift. But now we know the truth. The question is what we do with it." "We end the war," another senator declared. "If both sides were manipulated by the same person, then the conflict is based on lies. We negotiate with the separatists, show them the evidence, and work toward peaceful reconciliation." "Some will resist," Bile warned. Corporate interests who profit from war production. Military contractors, banking clans. They'll fight to keep the conflict going. Then we fight them, Padme said with steel in her voice, not with armies, but with law, with oversight, with transparency. We make it impossible to profit from the suffering of billions. In a cell deep beneath the Senate building, Darth Sidious sat in chains that suppressed his Force abilities. But he was smiling, because even imprisoned, even exposed, even defeated, he'd spent decades building redundancies into his plans. Somewhere in the galaxy, his apprentice waited. Somewhere, his secret projects continued. Somewhere, the seeds of empire still grew. They'd won this battle, but Sidious had spent his life playing the long game. He could be patient, he could wait, and eventually these dimensional refugees would slip up or go home, and when they did, his revenge would be absolute. Harry and Merlin stood on a temple balcony overlooking Coruscant, watching the sun set over the city planet. Both were bruised, exhausted, and running on nothing but kaf and determination. "We did it," Harry said quietly. "We actually stopped a galaxy-wide genocide." "We did," Merlin agreed. "But it's not over. Never is with dark wizards. They're like cockroaches. You think you've eliminated them, then more appear." Cheerful thought. Realistic thought. Merlin's eyes flashed gold. "I'm seeing futures where Palpatine escapes, where he has contingencies we haven't found, where his supporters try to free him. We need to be vigilant." "Always are," Harry said with a tired smile. "It's what we do. Fight the good fight, expose corruption, and make sure the bastards don't win." "Speaking of which," Merlin said, "we still need to deal with Count Dooku and the Separatist leadership. They were Palpatine's puppets, but they committed real crimes, real atrocities." "Tomorrow," Harry said firmly. "Tonight we rest, because if I have to cast one more spell, I'm going to pass out." Fair point. They stood in companionable silence, two wizards from Earth who'd found themselves in a galaxy at war and decided that injustice, regardless of scale, needed to be opposed. "Think we'll ever get home?" Harry asked. "Eventually," Merlin said. "But honestly, right now I'm exactly where I need to be, fighting darkness, protecting innocence, making sure corrupt governments face consequences. That's home enough for me." "Yeah," Harry agreed. "Yeah, it is." And in the distance, a galaxy that had lived under shadow for 13 years began, slowly and tentatively, to hope again. The Jedi Council convened an emergency session at dawn, but this time the atmosphere was different. No longer were they generals planning military campaigns. They were peacekeepers trying to salvage a republic that had nearly destroyed itself. Harry and Merlin stood before them, along with several key senators, including Bail Organa and Padme Amidala. "The question before us," Mace Windu said, "is how to end a war that was manufactured from the beginning. Count Dooku and the Separatist Council believe they're fighting for independence from a corrupt republic. They don't know they were pawns in Sidious's game." "Then we tell them," Harry said bluntly. "We broadcast the same evidence to Separatist worlds. Show them Palpatine was manipulating both sides. Give them a reason to negotiate." "And if they don't believe us?" Obi-Wan asked. "They'll think it's Republic propaganda." "That's where I come in," Merlin said. His eyes flashed gold. "I can project Palpatine's own memories, not through technology that can be faked, but through magic that shows truth directly. Every Separatist leader can witness Dooku's recruitment, Sidious's orders, the entire conspiracy through the Sith Lord's own eyes." Padme leaned forward intently. "If we could prove to the Separatist Parliament that their entire movement was created by a Sith Lord to destroy the Republic from within, It would shatter their justification for war, but we'd need to approach them peacefully. Send diplomats, not soldiers. I'll go, Bail volunteered immediately. The Alderaan delegation has maintained back-channel communications with moderate separatist systems. If anyone can arrange a meeting, we can. I'm going too, Ahsoka said, surprising everyone. I've fought this war from the beginning. I've killed droids, led soldiers, and watched friends die. If there's a chance to end it without more bloodshed, I have to try. Anakin started to protest, then stopped himself. His Padawan had grown beyond his protection, and her idealism might be exactly what the peace process needed. I'm going with her. As am I, Obi-Wan added. Anakin has a habit of attracting trouble. Someone needs to keep him from starting diplomatic incidents. Hey, Anakin protested, but he was smiling. Yoda's ears perked up thoughtfully. Wizards, you should go as well. Your magic, proof it provides that technology cannot fake. Convince the separatists it might. Fine by me, Harry said, but we're not going unarmed. If this is a trap, then we'll handle it, Merlin finished. We've dealt with darker things than battle droids and political extremists. 3 days later, a Republic diplomatic transport bearing flags of truce jumped out of hyperspace near Raxus Secundus, the separatist capital. The planet below was a far cry from Coruscant's gleaming towers, industrial cities, pollution-darkened skies, and clear evidence of a civilization that had prioritized manufacturing capacity over environmental concerns. A charming place, Harry muttered, looking at the viewport. Reminds me of industrial London during the Blitz. They've been preparing for total war, Bail observed sadly. Palpatine ensured both sides would militarize to the extreme. Even their civilian infrastructure has been converted for military production. The comm crackled. Republic vessel, this is Raxus Defense Control. You are cleared for landing at Separation Parliament Building, Platform 7. Any deviation from approved flight path will result in immediate destruction. Transmit all passenger manifests now. Friendly, Anakin said dryly. I can see why they're so eager for peace talks. They landed on a platform surrounded by B-2 super battle droids, commando droids, and enough artillery to level a small city. Waiting for them was a delegation led by Mina Bonteri, a separatist senator who'd been advocating for peace negotiations since the war began. Senator Organa, she greeted him formally. Your message claimed you had evidence that would change the nature of this conflict. I hope for the sake of countless lives that you're not exaggerating. We're not, Bail assured her. He gestured to Merlin and Harry. These are dimensional refugees with abilities that will prove what I'm saying is true. May we speak inside? This evidence needs to be presented to your full parliament. Mina studied the two wizards with obvious suspicion. You're the ones who exposed Chancellor Palpatine as a Sith Lord. Some of our leadership believes that was an elaborate Republic scheme to destabilize your own government as justification for harsher military measures. Which is exactly what Palpatine would have wanted you to think, Merlin said. Mistrust, paranoia, the belief that any evidence against him must be fabricated. That's how Sith Lords maintain power, through manipulation and division. Can you prove Palpatine orchestrated both sides of this war? Mina demanded. I can show you his memories, Merlin said. Direct neurological impressions extracted through magic, not a recording that could be faked, but his actual thoughts, experiences, and plans. You'll see through his eyes how he created your movement, recruited Count Dooku, and engineered every major battle to ensure maximum casualties on both sides. Mina was silent for a long moment. If you're lying, if this is some trick, then you can execute us and continue your war, Harry interrupted. But if we're telling the truth, if your entire rebellion was manufactured by a Sith Lord to destroy both the Republic and Confederacy, don't you owe it to your people to find out? Very well, Mina said finally. The Parliament will convene in 1 hour. You'll present your evidence, but know this. We have Count Dooku here as well. He's demanded to confront the evidence personally. If your claims are true, you'll be accusing him of being a traitor to the very movement he helped create. Good, Merlin said coldly. I've been looking forward to a conversation with Dooku. The Separatist Parliament chamber was smaller than the Republic Senate, but no less impressive. Austere, functional, and packed with representatives from hundreds of systems that had seceded from the Republic. Count Dooku sat in a position of honor, his aristocratic bearing radiating confidence despite the explosive accusations. Members of Parliament, Mina Bonteri began, we face an extraordinary claim. The Republic delegation asserts that our entire independence movement was orchestrated by Darth Sidious, Chancellor Palpatine, as part of a scheme to destroy both our governments. They've brought evidence they claim is irrefutable. Republic propaganda, Dooku said smoothly, an elaborate deception designed to sow doubt and division. I've led this movement for years. I know its origins. Palpatine had nothing to do with... Liar, Merlin interrupted, his eyes blazing gold. Every word you just spoke was a lie. You know exactly what Palpatine is because you're his apprentice. You've been taking orders from Darth Sidious since before this war began. The chamber erupted in shock and outrage. Dooku's composure cracked for just a moment before he recovered. Baseless accusations from a dimensional refugee with unknown motives. I demand evidence. Oh, you'll get evidence, Harry said. He pulled out his wand and cast a spell that made every senator in the chamber flinch. Legilimens. Harry's consciousness slammed into Dooku's mind like a battering ram. The Sith Lord tried to resist with force barriers, but legilimency operated on magical principles that force training couldn't counter. Harry ripped through decades of memories, pulling out the relevant ones with surgical precision. Dooku's recruitment by Sidious, the creation of the separatist movement, orders to prolong battles, instructions to sacrifice separatist allies when convenient. The entire conspiracy laid bare through Dooku's own memories. Merlin, now! Harry shouted, pulling out of Dooku's mind. Merlin's magic exploded outward, taking the memories Harry had extracted and projecting them holographically throughout the chamber. Every senator witnessed Dooku's betrayal through his own eyes, heard Sidious's orders in Dooku's memories, felt Dooku's contempt for the separatist cause he'd helped create. The chamber fell into stunned silence, then chaos. Traitor! Someone screamed. He betrayed us all! The war was a lie from the beginning. How many died because of his deception? Dooku stood, his lightsaber igniting. You dare violate my mind, you dare! Expelliarmus! Harry's disarming charm ripped the lightsaber from Dooku's hand before he could attack. Sit down, Count. You're under arrest for war crimes, fraud, conspiracy, and treason against both the Republic and the Confederacy you helped create. I am a Sith Lord, Dooku snarled, force lightning crackling from his fingertips. I will not be arrested by dimensional refugees playing at justice. Prodigo! Harry's shield caught the lightning. You're not a Sith Lord, you're a pawn. Sidious used you to start a war and was planning to replace you with Anakin Skywalker once you'd served your purpose. Want to see those memories too? That stopped Dooku cold. What? Merlin's eyes flashed and more memories projected. Sidious's plans to orchestrate Dooku's death, to turn Anakin dark through Dooku's murder, to replace one apprentice with a younger, more powerful version. Dooku's face went ashen as he realized he'd been as manipulated as everyone else. "You were never going to win," Harry said quietly. "None of you were. This war was designed to have no winners except Palpatine. The Republic would become an empire. The Separatists would be crushed or absorbed. And everyone who fought for either side would have died serving a Sith Lord's ambition." Mina Bonteri stood, her voice shaking with rage. "Count Dooku, you are hereby stripped of all authority and placed under arrest pending trial for crimes against the Confederacy. Guards, take him into custody." Dooku looked around the chamber at faces that had once trusted him, now twisted with betrayal and fury. He considered fighting, considered using the Force to kill as many as possible before being overwhelmed. Then he looked at Merlin and Harry, two wizards who'd systematically destroyed Sidious's conspiracy and exposed every lie, and realized fighting was pointless. "I should have known," Dooku said bitterly as commando droids restrained him. "Sidious always said sentiment was weakness. I believed I was exempt from his manipulations because I was his apprentice. But we were all his pawns, weren't we?" "Yes," Merlin said without sympathy. "But unlike the soldiers who died in this war, you chose to be a pawn. You knew Sidious was manipulating events and went along with it because you thought you'd benefit. That's not being a victim. That's being complicit." As guards led Dooku away, Padme stood to address the Parliament. "Members of the Confederacy, the Republic Senate has authorized me to make an offer. Immediate ceasefire, full disclosure of how both sides were manipulated, and negotiations for a new political arrangement that addresses the legitimate grievances that led to your secession in the first place." "Why should we trust anything from the Republic?" a senator demanded. "You've been trying to destroy us for 3 years." "Because we were being manipulated too," Anakin said, stepping forward. "I've fought in this war from the beginning. I've killed your soldiers, destroyed your bases, and watched my friends die to your attacks. And all of it, every battle, every death, it was orchestrated by Palpatine to make both sides hate each other so much that we'd never discover the truth." Ahsoka joined him. "I've seen what this war does to people. Clones who have nightmares about the droids they've destroyed. Separatist civilians caught in Republic bombardments. Nobody's winning except the people profiting from our conflict. Isn't it time we stopped letting them profit?" Obi-Wan added his voice. "The Jedi Order spent 3 years as generals, compromising our principles in the name of victory. We became so focused on winning that we stopped asking if we were fighting the right enemy. Palpatine counted on that. He counted on all of us being so consumed by war that we never looked behind the curtain to see who was pulling the strings." Bail stood. "The Republic is broken, we know that. The corruption, inefficiency, and injustice that drove your secession, those are real problems that need real solutions. But tearing the galaxy apart through war isn't the answer. Reform is, change is. Working together to build something better than either the Republic or Confederacy alone." The Parliament debated for hours. Merlin and Harry sat quietly, letting the politicians argue. This was their fight now, not the wizards. The evidence was presented. The truth exposed. What the galaxy did with that truth would determine its future. Finally, Mina Bonteri called for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the Republic's offer of ceasefire and negotiation. The vote wasn't unanimous. Corporate interests and hardline separatists voted against, unwilling to give up the war that had made them rich and powerful. But the majority, representatives who'd watched their people suffer for 3 years of senseless conflict, voted yes. "The motion passes," Mina announced. "The Confederacy of Independent Systems accepts the Republic's offer. The Clone Wars are over." The chamber erupted in applause, tears, and relief. Harry and Merlin sat back, exhausted but satisfied. "We did it," Harry said quietly. "We actually ended a galactic war." "We exposed the conspiracy that caused the war," Merlin corrected. "The politicians ended it. That's how it should be. We're not conquerors or rulers. We're just people who refuse to let injustice stand." "Spoken like a true warlock," Harry said with a tired smile. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, clone troopers and battle droids received ceasefire orders. Some couldn't believe it. Some wept with relief. Some felt lost, their entire purpose suddenly rendered obsolete. And in his cell beneath the Republic Senate, Darth Sidious felt the foundations of his empire crumbling. His apprentice arrested, his conspiracy exposed. His war ended before he could consolidate power, but he was still alive, still planning. And eventually, these wizards would make a mistake. He just had to be patient, because the dark side was patient. And revenge, Sidious had learned over decades, was a dish best served when your enemies thought they'd already won. The Republic Senate chamber had never been so packed. Every seat filled, every platform occupied, as senators from across the galaxy gathered for what many were calling the trial of the millennium. In the center of the chamber, suspended in a force suppression field and surrounded by guards, sat Darth Sidious, former Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, facing formal charges for crimes that spanned decades. Harry and Merlin stood in the witness gallery alongside Jedi masters, military officials, and survivors of Sidious's manipulations. The gallery also held someone unexpected, Count Dooku, in custody, but brought to testify against his former master in exchange for a reduced sentence. "This is historic," Bail Organa said quietly, standing beside the wizards. "Never in galactic history has a sitting head of state been tried for treason, conspiracy, and genocide while still alive to face judgment." "On my world, we tried it a few times," Harry replied. "Usually ended in revolution or civil war. How's your galaxy handling it?" "Not well," Bail admitted. "Half the Senate wants Sidious executed immediately. The other half demands due process. Corporate interests are lobbying for leniency because many of them profited from his schemes. It's a political nightmare." "Good," Merlin said, his eyes flashing gold. "Let it be messy. Let it be public. Let every being in this galaxy see that even the most powerful can be held accountable. That's how you prevent the next Palpatine." The presiding judge, an ancient Quarren with a reputation for absolute impartiality, called the chamber to order. "This tribunal will now hear testimony in the matter of the Republic versus Sheev Palpatine, also known as Darth Sidious. The accused faces 347 separate charges, ranging from conspiracy to genocide. How does the accused plead?" Sidious, his force abilities suppressed, but his mind still sharp, looked at the assembled senators with something approaching amusement. "I plead guilty to everything." The chamber erupted. The judge slammed his gavel repeatedly. "Order! Order in the chamber!" "You admit to orchestrating the Clone Wars?" the prosecutor demanded. "To creating both the Republic and separatist military forces? To planning the genocide of the Jedi Order?" "I admit to all of it," Sidious said calmly. "I created the greatest conspiracy in galactic history. I manipulated trillions of beings. I orchestrated a war that killed billions. And I did it all with such brilliance that none of you suspected until two-dimensional refugees with magic exposed me." He smiled coldly. "That's not a confession. That's an achievement." "He's insane," Padme whispered. "No," Harry corrected. "He's arrogant. He thinks admitting everything makes him look powerful rather than guilty. Classic dark wizard behavior. Voldemort did the same thing before I killed him." The prosecutor continued. Given your confession, the tribunal should proceed directly to sentencing. I object, Sidious interrupted. I confessed to my actions, but I didn't confess they were crimes. I acted to save the galaxy from the Jedi's incompetence, from the Republic's corruption, from the chaos that was tearing civilization apart. Everything I did was necessary. Necessary? Mace Windu's voice thundered across the chamber. You call genocide necessary? I call it pragmatic, Sidious replied. The Jedi Order had become stagnant, dogmatic, and blind to the dark side's presence. You were peacekeepers who'd forgotten how to keep peace, instead becoming generals in a war you didn't understand. I would have eliminated you and created something better, a new order with the strength to actually protect the galaxy. By enslaving it? Obi-Wan challenged. Your new order was built on tyranny. Tyranny is just order by another name, Sidious said, and the galaxy needs order. Democracy is chaos dressed in pretty words, the weak electing the incompetent to rule over the capable. I would have ended that farce and established an empire that could actually function. Merlin stood from his seat. May I address the accused? The judge hesitated. You're a witness, not a prosecutor. I'm someone who's dealt with megalomaniacal tyrants for 8 centuries, Merlin replied, and I can cut through his philosophical justifications faster than any lawyer. Proceed, the judge allowed. Merlin walked to the center of the chamber, his eyes blazing gold as he faced Sidious directly. You claim you acted for the greater good, that your crimes were necessary, that your new order would have been superior to democracy. But here's what you actually did, stripped of rhetoric. His magic blazed and holographic projections filled the chamber, not Palpatine's memories this time, but the consequences of his actions. Children orphaned by the war, planets bombed to rubble, clone troopers bred as slaves, Jedi masters murdered, billions dead across thousands of worlds. You didn't create order, Merlin said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. You created suffering. You claimed the Jedi were stagnant. They were peacekeepers for 1,000 generations. You claimed democracy was weak. It survived millennia while Sith empires rose and fell in decades. You say you're superior. You were outsmarted by 2 refugees who'd been in your galaxy less than a week. The chamber was silent. Sidious's smile had frozen into something uglier. Let me tell you about tyrants, Palpatine, Merlin continued. I've known dozens. Uther Pendragon, who murdered people for having magic. Morgana, who tried to conquer Camelot. Mordred, who betrayed everything for power. And every single one had the same justification you do, that their actions were necessary, that they were building something better, that the ends justified the means. He leaned closer. They were all wrong. They all failed. And history remembers them not as visionaries, but as cautionary tales. You're no different. Your empire would have lasted maybe 50 years before collapsing into civil war, rebellion, or assassination, because tyranny always fails, always. Bold words from someone who serves a king, Sidious sneered. You advised Arthur Pendragon, didn't you? A monarch, a dictator by blood. I advised Arthur, yes, Merlin agreed, and when he made mistakes, I told him. When he was wrong, I argued with him. When he became tyrannical, I opposed him. That's the difference between service and slavery, Palpatine. Arthur could be questioned. You can't. Arthur admitted mistakes. You don't. Arthur ultimately sacrificed himself to save his kingdom. You'd sacrifice your entire galaxy to save yourself. Harry joined Merlin in the center of the chamber. I want to add something. You keep comparing yourself to people trying to save civilization, but I've fought a dark wizard who made the exact same claims. Tom Riddle, Voldemort. said he was creating a better world by eliminating people he deemed inferior, said violence was necessary to establish his new order, said anyone who opposed him was too weak or stupid to understand his vision. "And where is this Voldemort now?" Sidious asked mockingly. "Dead," Harry said flatly, "killed by the very people he dismissed as inferior. Because that's what happens to tyrants eventually. They underestimate someone, make one mistake, and everything collapses. You're living proof. You planned for decades, manipulated trillions, and failed because you never considered that two wizards might show up and refuse to play by your rules." "Failure?" Sidious's composure finally cracked. "I came within days of absolute victory. If you hadn't interfered—" "But we did interfere," Merlin interrupted. "That's the point. Your perfect plan relied on nobody questioning, nobody investigating, nobody having abilities outside your understanding. The moment someone did, your entire conspiracy collapsed. That's not brilliance, Palpatine. That's fragility." The judge called for order as the chamber erupted in discussion. "We'll now hear testimony from Count Dooku." Dooku was brought forward, still in restraints. The fallen Jedi looked at his former master with something between hatred and shame. "I served Darth Sidious for 13 years. I believed we were building a better galaxy. I was wrong." "You were weak," Sidious said dismissively. "You always were, Dooku. Too sentimental. Too attached to your Jedi morality. I would have replaced you with Skywalker within months." "I know," Dooku said. "The wizards showed me those memories. You were planning my death at the same time you were praising my service. And that's when I realized everyone is expendable to you. Apprentices, allies, entire civilizations. If they don't serve your immediate purpose, you discard them." "Efficiency," Sidious said. "Sociopathy," Dooku corrected. "I committed terrible crimes under your orders, started a war, killed innocents, betrayed everything I once believed in, and for what? So you could have unlimited power for a few decades before age, or rebellion ended your empire?" He turned to the Senate. "Darth Sidious is guilty of everything charged and more. But don't make the mistake I did. Don't think executing him solves the problem. He exploited weaknesses in the Republic, corruption, inequality, corporate control of government. Those weaknesses remain. If you don't fix them, the next Palpatine will just exploit the same cracks." Bale stood. "Count Dooku is right. Sidious is guilty, yes. But this trial should be about more than one man's crimes. It should be about how an entire government became so corrupt that a Sith Lord could manipulate it for decades without being detected." Padme joined him. "I propose we expand this trial. Not just Sidious, but everyone who enabled him. The corporate lobbyists who funded his campaigns. The senators who voted for emergency powers without oversight. The military contractors who profited from perpetual war. They're all complicit. That would destabilize the entire government," a senator protested. "Good," Ahsoka called from the gallery. "This government needs destabilizing. It failed. A Sith Lord became Chancellor and nobody noticed. If that's not systemic failure, what is?" Anakin stood beside his former Padawan. "Ahsoka's right. We can't just punish Sidious and pretend everything else is fine. The Republic that allowed him to rise needs to be torn down and rebuilt." "Careful, Skywalker," Sidious said with venomous amusement. "You're starting to sound like a revolutionary. Perhaps my corruption spread further than anyone realized." "You corrupted nothing," Anakin shot back. "You exposed problems that already existed. The difference is we're going to fix them instead of exploiting them." The judge called for a recess, overwhelmed by the trial spiraling into a referendum on galactic governance itself. As senators filed out arguing, Harry and Merlin remained in the gallery. "This is getting complicated," Harry observed. "Justice usually is," Merlin replied. "But that's good. They're finally asking the right questions. Not just, how do we punish Sidious, but how do we prevent the next one?" Obi-Wan approached them. "You two have caused quite the political upheaval. Half the Senate wants to thank you. The other half wants you deported before you destabilize anything else." "We're good at destabilizing corrupt systems," Harry said with a slight smile. "It's kind of our thing." "Apparently," Obi-Wan agreed. "But the question now is what happens next. Sidious will be convicted. His confession guaranteed that. But his supporters, his secret projects, his contingency plans, those are still out there. The Jedi have been investigating, but we keep finding more layers to his conspiracy." "Then we keep peeling layers," Merlin said, "until there's nothing left but truth and justice." In his cell, Sidious listened to guards discussing the trial. They thought him defeated, broken, powerless. They were wrong. His body might be imprisoned, but his mind remained sharp, and he'd spent decades preparing for every possible failure scenario. Somewhere in the galaxy, his secret research facilities continued their work. Somewhere, loyal agents waited for orders. Somewhere, contingency plans activated automatically after his arrest. The wizards had won this battle, but Sidious had been playing a game measured in decades and centuries. One defeat meant nothing. He would escape, rebuild, and ensure that Harry Potter and Merlin learned the true meaning of Sith revenge. All he needed was patience, and Darth Sidious had learned long ago how to be very, very patient. But in the Senate chamber, as the trial resumed and testimony continued, a galaxy that had lived under manipulation for too long was finally demanding accountability. Not just from Sidious, but from everyone who'd enabled, profited from, or ignored his crimes. Justice, real justice, was slow and messy and complicated, but it was happening, and that terrified corrupt officials across the galaxy far more than any Sith Lord ever could. 3 weeks after Sidious's trial began, Harry Potter stood in the Jedi Temple's meditation chamber with a datapad displaying disturbing intelligence. Merlin sat cross-legged nearby, his eyes glowing gold as he sifted through prophetic visions that grew darker by the hour. "We've got a problem," Harry announced as Mace Windu, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka entered the chamber. "A big one." "Bigger than exposing a galaxy-wide conspiracy?" Obi-Wan asked dryly. "Yes," Merlin said, his eyes snapping back to normal. "Sidious has contingencies. I've been seeing them in Force visions. No, wait, I don't use the Force. Magic visions, whatever. Point is, he expected to be exposed eventually and prepared for it." Harry pulled up holographic displays. "While we were focused on the trial, I've been investigating Sidious's finances. He's got black budget projects scattered across the galaxy, hidden research facilities, secret military installations, and something called Project Blackwing that sounds absolutely terrifying." "What's Project Blackwing?" Mace demanded. "A bioweapon," Harry said grimly. "According to the encrypted files I stole from his personal servers. Yes, I broke into his data networks. No, I'm not apologizing. It's designed to reanimate dead tissue and turn corpses into mindless attackers. Essentially, he was developing a zombie plague." "That's obscene," Ahsoka said, her face pale. "Even for Sidious, creating the undead." "It gets worse," Merlin interrupted. "My visions show that if Sidious believes he's truly defeated, he'll activate all contingencies simultaneously, unleash bioweapons, activate sleeper agents, trigger hidden bombs in Republic facilities. He'd rather burn the galaxy than let it survive without him." Anakin's hands clenched into fists. "We need to stop him permanently." "We can't just execute him," Obi-Wan cautioned. "He's standing trial. Due process." "We'll get millions killed if he activates his doomsday protocols," Harry interrupted. "I've dealt with dark wizards who had final contingencies. Voldemort turned his own body into Horcruxes to cheat death. Grindelwald built hidden army bases that activated after his capture. Sidious is the same type. He won't accept defeat, so he's programmed the galaxy to die with him. Then we find his contingencies and dismantle them," Mace said. "Where do we start?" "With his inner circle," Merlin replied. "Sidious didn't build this alone. He had apprentices, agents, and collaborators who know where his secret facilities are. We interrogate them, extract locations, and shut everything down before he can activate it." "The Inquisitors we captured," Ahsoka suggested. "They served him directly. They must know something." "Already interrogated them with Veritaserum," Harry said. "Got locations for 17 facilities. But there are more. My magic can sense lies, and every Inquisitor we've questioned believes there are projects even they didn't know about. Sidious compartmentalized everything." "Then we need someone higher up his chain of command," Anakin said. He looked at Obi-Wan. "What about General Grievous? He commanded the Separatist military. He must have coordinated with Sidious directly." "Grievous is still at large," Mace reported. "After Dooku's arrest and the ceasefire, he disappeared with a battalion of loyal droids. Intelligence suggests he's on Utapau, but we haven't been able to confirm." "I can confirm," Merlin said, his eyes flashing gold again. "I'm seeing him right now. Utapau, 10th level, hiding in the Pau City sinkhole. He's preparing something, an attack, maybe, or an escape." "Then we go after him," Anakin said immediately. "Capture him, interrogate him, find Sidious's facilities." "It's too dangerous," Obi-Wan protested. "Grievous is one of the most effective military commanders in the galaxy. Even with the ceasefire, he has thousands of droids loyal only to him." "Which is why we're going," Harry said, pulling out his wand. "Merlin and I have dealt with armies before. And Grievous is just a cyborg with lightsabers. I've fought worse." "Overconfidence is dangerous," Mace warned. "It's not overconfidence," Merlin corrected. "It's experience. Harry and I have toppled dark wizards, defeated armies, and exposed conspiracies. Grievous is just the next obstacle." 2 days later, a small strike team descended on Utapau. Harry, Merlin, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Commander Cody, with his most trusted clone troopers, all carefully screened to ensure their inhibitor chips were completely deactivated. Utapau was a barren world of massive sinkholes, and Pau City clung to the walls of one such sinkhole like a mechanical barnacle. They approached quietly, using Merlin's concealment magic to bypass droid patrols. "There," Obi-Wan whispered, pointing to a landing platform where General Grievous stood directing battle droids in loading a transport. "He's evacuating." "Not evacuating," Harry corrected, his enhanced perception from years of Auror training noting details. "Those aren't supplies. Those are weapons. Military-grade explosives. He's planning an attack." "On what?" Ahsoka asked. Merlin's eyes blazed gold as he peered into the immediate future. "The Senate building. Grievous is going to bomb the trial. Kill Sidious, the judges, half the Senate, and blame it on Republic extremists. Create chaos that would restart the war." "We have to stop him," Anakin said, reaching for his lightsaber. "Wait," Harry cautioned. "We need him alive. He knows where Sidious's facilities are. If we kill him, we lose that intelligence." "Then we capture him," Merlin said. "Harry, you and I will handle Grievous directly. Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka, disable his ship and evacuation route. Cody, your men secure the area and make sure no droids escape to warn anyone." They moved with practiced coordination. The clones spread out, silently eliminating droid sentries, with precision that spoke to years of training. The Jedi moved to sabotage the transport, and Harry and Merlin simply walked directly toward Grievous, dropping their magical concealment as they approached. "General Grievous," Harry called out, "I'm afraid we can't let you bomb the Senate." Grievous spun, his 4 arms extending as he drew 4 lightsabers simultaneously. "The dimensional refugees Sidious warned me about you, said you were dangerous." "He wasn't wrong," Merlin replied, his eyes glowing gold. "Drop your weapons and surrender. You're under arrest for war crimes, conspiracy, and attempted terrorism." Grievous laughed, a mechanical rattling sound. "I am a military commander who has killed countless Jedi. You think 2 wizards frighten me?" "We don't think," Harry said. "We know. Stupefy." The stunning spell hit Grievous square in his chest armor. The cyborg staggered but didn't fall. His mechanical body was resistant to spells designed for organic beings, but he was clearly affected, his movements sluggish. "Interesting," Grievous said, his vocabulary distorted. "Your magic affects my remaining organic components, but I am mostly machine. You cannot stop me." He charged with inhuman speed, all 4 lightsabers spinning in a deadly pattern that had killed dozens of Jedi. But Harry had fought faster opponents. Voldemort's killing curses moved at light speed, and he'd learned to dodge those. Axio lightsabers. Harry's summoning charm ripped 2 lightsabers from Grievous's hands before the cyborg could react. Merlin followed up immediately, his magic manifesting as golden chains that wrapped around Grievous's mechanical limbs. "You're outmatched," Merlin said, his magic tightening the bindings. "Stop fighting and answer our questions." Grievous triggered a built-in flamethrower, spraying fire at both wizards. Harry's shield charm deflected it, but the heat was intense enough to make them fall back. Grievous used the opening to break Merlin's magical chains through sheer mechanical strength. "I was built to kill Jedi," Grievous snarled, retrieving his fallen lightsabers. "What makes you think you're different?" "This," Merlin said simply. His eyes blazed, and suddenly there were a dozen Merlins surrounding Grievous, all perfect illusions, all moving independently. "Try fighting what you can't hit." Grievous attacked the nearest Merlin. His lightsaber passed through harmlessly. Another Merlin hit him from behind with a concussive spell that dented his armor. A third frozen his mechanical legs with ice magic. A fourth used telekinesis to lift him off the ground. "He's right," Harry said, walking through his own illusions. "You were built to fight Force users, predict their movements through the Force, counter their telekinesis with superior strength. But we're not Force users. Our magic operates on completely different principles. You have no defense against it." Grievous thrashed in Merlin's telekinetic grip. "Sidious will kill you for this. He has plans within plans, contingencies you cannot imagine." "That's why we need you alive," Harry said. He pulled out the Veritaserum. "You're going to tell us everything, every secret facility, every hidden weapon, every contingency plan, and you're going to do it willingly." "Never," Grievous spat. "We'll see." Harry administered the Veritaserum directly into Grievous's vocabulary intake. The potion affected the cyborg's remaining organic brain immediately. His struggles ceased. His voice became flat and emotionless. "What is Project Blackwing?" Harry demanded. "A bioweapon development facility on Dandoran. Creates reanimated corpses through Sith alchemy and virus synthesis. Designed for mass deployment in case of Sidious's capture or death, activated remotely through encrypted signal." "Where are the other facilities?" Merlin pressed. Grievous's vocabulary rattled off locations. Weapons development on Mustafar, clone conditioning centers on Camino, secret prisons on Stygian Prime. experimental force research on Moraband, and dozens more scattered across known and unknown space. How do we shut them down? Harry asked. Central control hub on Coruscant, beneath the old Jedi temple. Sidious built it during the temple's renovation 3 years ago. All contingencies route through that hub. Destroy it, and the automated systems fail. Harry and Merlin looked at each other. Beneath the Jedi temple, Harry said slowly. He's been hiding his control center literally under the Jedi's noses for 3 years. Bold, Merlin admitted. Arrogant but bold. Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka rejoined them, having disabled Grievous's transport. Did you get what we need? Obi-Wan asked. Everything, Harry confirmed, including the fact that there's a massive secret facility beneath the Jedi temple that controls all of Sidious's contingencies. Beneath the temple? Mace Windu's voice crackled over their comms. They'd been transmitting everything back to Coruscant. That's impossible. We would have sensed it through the Force. Unless it's shielded by technology that blocks Force detection, Merlin said, which Sidious absolutely would have done. Master Windu, you need to evacuate the temple immediately. If that facility activates, it could bring down the entire structure. We're already moving? Mace's voice was tight with barely controlled fury. How did we miss this? Because you're not used to thinking like villains, Harry said. Trust me, after fighting Voldemort, I learned to expect hidden bases, secret weapons, and backup plans for the backup plans. Sidious is the same type. He never puts all his eggs in one basket. They transported Grievous back to Coruscant under heavy guard. The cyborg general, still under Veritaseram's influence, provided detailed schematics of the underground facility. What they revealed made even hardened Jedi masters pale. It's massive, Anakin said, studying the holographic blueprints. Stretches under half the temple district, weapons storage, cloning labs, droid, factories, and something labeled throne room. He built himself a throne room beneath the Jedi temple, Ahsoka said incredulously. That's some serious psychological issues. That's Sith arrogance, Obi-Wan corrected. Sidious wanted to rule from a position where he literally stood above the Jedi Order, even if they didn't know it. It's symbolic dominance. It's also tactically brilliant, Merlin admitted. If anyone discovered the facility, attacking it would risk destroying the temple. The Jedi would hesitate to use overwhelming force against their own home. Classic hostage situation. Then we don't use overwhelming force, Harry said. We infiltrate quietly, disable the contingency systems, and shut it down before Sidious knows we're there. He'll know the moment we enter, Mace warned. Even in prison, Sidious can sense disturbances in the Force. But can he sense magic? Harry asked, pulling out the invisibility cloak. Merlin and I will infiltrate. We're Force blind. He won't see us coming. This is too dangerous, Obi-Wan protested. If there are traps, defenses, automated systems, then we deal with them, Merlin interrupted. We've broken into dark wizard strongholds before. This is no different. Actually, it's very different, a new voice said. Yoda entered the chamber, his ancient eyes troubled. A Sith Lord's lair, this is, steeped in dark side energy, dangerous to anyone not prepared. We're prepared, Harry assured him. I've walked through Voldemort's Horcrux caves and Grindelwald's fortress. Merlin's dealt with centuries of dark sorcery. We can handle whatever Sidious left down there. Yoda studied them both for a long moment. Brave you are. Foolish, perhaps, but needed. Your abilities are. Go, you may. But careful, you must be. The dark side corrupts, even those who think themselves immune. We'll be careful, Merlin promised, but we're ending this tonight. Every contingency, every weapon, Every last piece of Sidious's conspiracy. We're tearing it all down and making sure he can never threaten this galaxy again. As they prepared to infiltrate the facility beneath the Jedi temple, neither wizard noticed the small smile on Yoda's face. Perhaps the galaxy didn't need Force users to fight darkness. Perhaps sometimes it needed wizards who simply refused to let evil stand, no matter how deeply it was buried. Midnight at the Jedi Temple. Harry and Merlin stood at the entrance to a maintenance shaft that, according to Grievous's intelligence, led directly to Sidious's hidden facility. The invisibility cloak covered them both, rendering them undetectable to security systems and Force users alike. "Last chance to bring backup," Harry whispered as they descended into darkness. "And compromise our advantage?" Merlin's eyes glowed gold, providing light. "Sidious can't sense us. That's worth more than an army of Jedi." The shaft descended for what felt like miles, passing through layers of temple foundation, ancient Coruscant infrastructure, and finally into passages that looked deliberately constructed. Smooth walls, atmospheric controls, and lighting that activated as they approached. "He expected visitors," Harry noted, wand raised defensively. "This isn't abandoned, it's maintained." "Worse," Merlin said, his prophetic senses screaming warnings. "It's occupied. I sense life signs ahead. Dozens of them." They reached a blast door marked with Sith symbols. Harry tried an Alohomora charm, but the lock was mechanical, not magical. Merlin simply placed his hand on the door, his eyes blazing, and the entire mechanism melted from the inside out. "Subtle," Harry remarked. "Effective," Merlin corrected. Beyond the door stretched a vast underground complex that looked more like a military base than a secret facility. Barracks, armories, training rooms, and in the distance, a massive chamber that could only be the throne room Grievous had mentioned. "Contact," Harry hissed. A patrol of red-armored soldiers rounded the corner, not clones but elite guards wearing armor similar to the Imperial Royal Guards Harry had seen in Sidious's memories. "Emperor's Shadow Guard," Merlin identified through telepathy. "Force-sensitive warriors loyal only to Sidious. They've been hiding down here for years, waiting for his signal to emerge and enforce his rule." "How many?" 300, maybe 400, and they're all trained in dark side techniques. Harry considered their options. They could fight through hundreds of Force users, but that would alert Sidious and potentially trigger the contingencies they were trying to prevent. Or, "Merlin, can you put them all to sleep at once?" "That many Force users? It'll drain me completely." "But can you do it?" Merlin's eyes blazed brighter. "Yes, but I'll need time. 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Can you keep them distracted that long?" "Watch me." Harry dropped the invisibility cloak and stepped into the corridor, wand raised. "Attention! You're all under arrest for conspiracy, treason, and hiding in a basement like cowards." The Shadow Guards reacted instantly, red lightsabers igniting as they charged. Harry met them with a barrage of spells that would have overwhelmed any normal opponent. Stupefy, Petrificus Totalis, Expelliarmus, Bombarda. Stunning spells bounced off Force barriers. Full-body binding curses were deflected by lightsabers. Disarming charms failed against opponents who held weapons through telekinesis as much as grip. But the explosive hexes worked, blowing apart walls and ceilings, creating chaos and smoke that obscured Merlin working his magic behind Harry. Protego Maxima, Harry's shield dome expanded to cover half the corridor, blocking a wave of Force lightning from 3 different directions. The strain was immense. These weren't untrained Inquisitors, but elite warriors who'd spent years perfecting dark side combat. "Merlin, anytime now," Harry gasped as his shield began cracking. "Almost there." Merlin's voice was strained with effort. His magic blazed like a second sun, and suddenly every shadow guard in the facility simply collapsed, dropping into enchanted sleep so deep that even force healing couldn't wake them. Merlin stumbled, drained. Harry caught him before he fell. "I've got you. How long will they sleep?" 8 hours, maybe 10. Merlin's eyes had returned to normal, all the gold drained from them. "But I'm spent. Used everything I had. You're on your own for whatever comes next." "Then I'd better make it count." Harry helped Merlin sit against a wall, leaving him the invisibility cloak. "Stay hidden. Rest. I'll handle the rest." He advanced deeper into the facility alone, his wand the only light in corridors that grew progressively darker and colder, not physically cold, but spiritually. The dark side was thick here, concentrated to levels that made even Harry's non-force-sensitive mind feel oppressed. The throne room doors were massive, inscribed with Sith text that Harry couldn't read but instinctively knew was threatening. He blasted them open with a reductor curse and stepped into a chamber that took his breath away. It was a cathedral to darkness. A throne of black stone sat atop a pyramid of steps. Holographic displays showed every corner of the galaxy, monitoring systems, weapons platforms, and what looked like countdown timers for various contingencies. And sitting at a control console, as if he'd been expecting Harry all along, was a hooded figure. "Not Sidious," Harry said immediately, his battle instincts honed through years of fighting dark wizards, recognized different body language, different presence. "Who are you?" The figure turned, revealing a woman's face marked with Sith tattoos. "I am Darth Oculus, Sidious's final contingency." He foresaw the possibility of exposure and imprisonment. "I am his insurance policy, the one who will continue his work if he falls." "Another Sith Lord. Fantastic." Harry raised his wand. "Let me guess. You're about to activate all the doomsday weapons, unleash bio-weapons, and burn the galaxy because your master lost?" "Not burn," Oculus corrected, her voice disturbingly calm. "Transform. Sidious's empire may have failed, but his vision doesn't have to. I will activate Project Blackwing, release the reanimation virus across chosen worlds, and use the chaos to establish a new order, one where the living fear death so much, they'll accept any authority that promises protection." "That's insane." "That's pragmatism." Her hand moved toward the console. "In 5 seconds, I activate the signal. 10 seconds after that, the virus releases from facilities across the galaxy. Millions will die, billions will become infected, and from that nightmare, I will build an empire that will Avada Kedavra." The green curse hit Oculus before she finished her speech. Harry had learned from Voldemort's habit of monologuing. Sometimes you just killed the dark wizard before they could finish explaining their plan. Oculus collapsed, dead before she hit the floor. Harry felt nothing, no guilt, no hesitation. She'd been about to commit genocide. The killing curse, forbidden and dark though it was, had been justified. He rushed to the console. The countdown was active. 4 minutes until signal transmission. He tried every spell he knew. Finite incantatum to cancel magic. Didn't work on technology. Reducto to destroy it. Triggered fail-safes that would send the signal immediately. Even Defindo to cut power cables. The system had redundant power sources. Damn it! Harry's mind raced. He couldn't destroy it without triggering the contingency. Couldn't disable it through magic. Couldn't... Wait. He pulled out the Elder Wand and cast a spell he'd only attempted once before during the final battle with Voldemort. Prior Incantado. The spell was designed to reveal a wand's previous spells, but Harry modified it, pushing his will through the Elder Wand, the most powerful wand ever created, said to be capable of the impossible, and directed it at the technological console. The wand glowed. The console flickered. And suddenly, Harry was seeing through technology as if it were a spell book, reading its previous spells, its programming, its protocols, its access codes. There, a master override code buried deep in the system, a single command that would shut down all contingencies permanently. Harry's fingers flew across the holographic interface, inputting the code with 30 seconds to spare. The countdown stopped. The weapons platforms powered down. Across the galaxy, secret facilities received stand-down orders and began safe shutdown procedures. He'd done it. Sidious's final contingency was neutralized. "Harry?" Merlin's voice came from the doorway. The warlock looked drained but conscious. "Is it over?" "It's over," Harry confirmed. "All of it. Sidious's empire, his contingencies, his backup plans. Everything shut down." "And her?" Merlin nodded toward Oculus's body. "Tried to activate a genocide. I stopped her." Harry's voice was flat. "I know, killing Curse is unforgivable, dark magic, all that. But she was seconds away from releasing a zombie plague." "I'm not judging," Merlin said quietly. "I've killed too. Sometimes violently, sometimes necessarily. The difference between us and dark wizards isn't that we never kill. It's that we kill only when there's no other choice, and we never enjoy it." They stood in silence for a moment, two wizards who'd traveled dimensions and found themselves fighting darkness in a strange galaxy far from home. "We should tell the Jedi," Harry said finally. "Show them this facility. Let them secure it and make sure there aren't any more surprises." Within hours, the Jedi Temple swarmed with investigators, engineers, and council members who couldn't believe they'd been living above a Sith fortress for 3 years without detecting it. The Shadow Guards were taken into custody. The weapons were secured. The contingency systems were permanently dismantled. And in his cell, Darth Sidious felt his carefully constructed backup plans die one by one, like stars being extinguished across a void. His empire was truly ended, his vision defeated, his legacy reduced to being a cautionary tale about the dangers of unlimited ambition. 2 days later, the Senate reconvened for Sidious's final sentencing. The trial had revealed depths of conspiracy that shocked even cynical politicians. Corporate lobbyists arrested for accepting bribes, senators implicated in war profiteering, military contractors charged with deliberately prolonging the conflict. The judge, the ancient Quarren who'd presided over the entire trial, spoke with absolute finality. "Sheev Palpatine, also known as Darth Sidious, you have been found guilty of 347 counts, including treason, genocide, conspiracy, murder, and crimes against sentience itself. This tribunal sentences you to life imprisonment in a forced suppression facility with no possibility of parole, pardon, or release. You will spend the remainder of your natural life reflecting on the suffering you've caused." "Not execution?" someone in the gallery shouted. "He deserves death." "He deserves worse than death," the judge replied. "He deserves to live a long life knowing he failed completely, that his empire never existed, that his grand vision amounted to nothing, that two-dimensional refugees destroyed his decades of planning in less than a month. Death would be mercy. This is justice." Sidious said nothing as guards led him away, but his expression, for the first time in decades, showed genuine defeat. In the aftermath, the Republic began the painful process of reconstruction, constitutional amendments to prevent future emergency power grabs, corporate regulation to stop war profiteering, clone rights legislation granting citizenship and choice to every clone trooper. The Jedi Order reformed itself, becoming advisors rather than generals, peacekeepers rather than warriors. And Harry Potter and Merlin stood on a balcony overlooking Coruscant, watching the city planet begin to heal. "We did good work here," Harry said. "We did," Merlin agreed. exposed a conspiracy, stopped a genocide, reformed a government. Not bad for a couple of accidental tourists. Think we'll ever get home? Eventually. Merlin's eyes flashed gold briefly. I'm seeing futures where we find a way, but not yet. There's still work to do here. Sidious may be imprisoned, but his corruption runs deep. It'll take years to root out all his supporters and rebuild properly. Then we stay, Harry decided, at least until we're sure this galaxy can survive without us. Look at us, Merlin laughed. Two wizards from Earth protecting a galaxy we barely understand, fighting injustice because it's the right thing to do. It's what we do, Harry said simply, whether it's Voldemort, Grindelwald, or Darth Sidious. Evil is evil, and someone has to stand against it. Anakin approached them, Ahsoka at his side. The Council wants to know if you'll accept official positions as Republic advisors. Permanently, if you want, or at least until you find your way home. We'll accept, Harry said. On one condition, we get to investigate anyone we suspect of corruption. No restrictions, no political interference. That's going to make you a lot of enemies, Ahsoka warned. Good, Merlin grinned. Enemies mean we're doing something right. The corrupt should be afraid of us. That's the whole point. Anakin laughed. You know what? The galaxy could use more people who think like you. Welcome to the team. The galaxy changed after the Sidious conspiracy. Not overnight. Corruption that deep doesn't disappear quickly, but gradually, painfully, honestly. Senators who'd enabled Palpatine faced tribunals. Corporate executives who'd profited from war stood trial. Clone troopers, freed from their programming, became citizens with rights and choices. The Jedi Order reformed, abandoning their role as Republic generals and returning to their peacekeeping roots. And at the center of this transformation stood two wizards from another universe entirely, Harry Potter and Merlin. The dimensional refugees who'd refused to let injustice stand simply because it wasn't their galaxy. They'd exposed conspiracy, prevented genocide, humiliated a Sith Lord publicly, and shown that even the most powerful tyrant could be held accountable when people simply refused to look away from truth. Darth Sidious spent his remaining years in a force suppression cell, stripped of power, legacy destroyed, forced to witness the Republic thriving without him. His grand empire never materialized. His vision of tyranny died before it began. History would remember him not as the emperor he'd planned to become, but as the cautionary tale of what happens when ambition grows beyond morality. The Clone Wars officially ended with the Treaty of Reformation, a document guaranteeing rights to former separatist worlds, reforming Republic governance and establishing oversight mechanisms to prevent another Palpatine. Count Dooku, testifying against his former master and exposing every crime he'd committed, received a reduced sentence and spent his remaining years writing about how easily good intentions could be, corrupted by the promise of power. But perhaps the greatest change was cultural. A generation of beings across the galaxy learned that governments could be questioned, that authority wasn't infallible, and that sometimes the greatest heroes came from the most unexpected places. Children played games about wizards fighting Sith Lords. Students studied how Merlin and Harry had exposed corruption through magic that couldn't be blocked or corrupted. And slowly, the galaxy learned to be more skeptical, more questioning, more willing to demand accountability from those in power. Harry and Merlin never found a way home. The dimensional rift that brought them remained closed, its secrets beyond even their considerable abilities. But they'd found purpose, serving as the Republic's unofficial investigators, hunting corruption wherever it hid, exposing injustice with the same determination they'd shown fighting dark wizards on Earth. The galaxy far, far away had been changed forever by two wizards who simply couldn't stand by while evil flourished. And Darth Sidious, the greatest Sith Lord of his generation, had been utterly, completely, humiliatingly defeated by magic he'd never understood, and heroes he'd never anticipated. Justice, real and permanent, had finally come to the Star Wars universe, and it spoke with a British accent. May the Force be with you. More stories await.